And we are live.
Yay, yay,
Welcome,
yay.
welcome everyone to another live with Hanifa Nayela. Today is no different than every other Friday. I have some guests for you guys. I know people are going to begin to come in. Go ahead and like and share the link with your friends on your social media spaces so that they can come over and join the conversation as well. Today is no different, just a different conversation. We
Mhm.
will be discussing Black motherhood today. We are going to be raw, transparent, straightforward, just telling the truth, telling it like it is,
Mhm.
with each other in this conversation. Please, for the ladies that's on the panel, I feel like TJ, you already know this. You don't have to hold back. I just ask that we respect each other when we're talking. We do not talk over each other.
Definitely.
Um, and just share from your heart. That's pretty much all I ask. And so far it's been fine. We have one more person that should be joining us shortly. And so while we wait for them, how are you ladies doing?
A-okay. A-okay.
I
I
know
second that.
TJ, you're kind of in between houses, right?
Yes, yes, yes. The big move is this Sunday will be done, but yeah,
Did you
I'm
do
a bit
all the
tired.
packing?
Yes, I have.
Because
Yes,
I
I
feel
have.
like women, we tend to do all the packing, right? And then the men come in and do all the heavy lifting.
Yep, that's
Usually.
true.
That's
Yeah.
exactly it.
Moving
Yeah.
is one of those definitely a gender role type thing. Yeah, that
It's
is
funny
definitely
how certain situations just kind of allows us to just fall into those rules
yep,
naturally
yep,
without force. It just
yep,
happens that way for the most part. For the
yep.
most part, because I know there are some people who live alone and they don't have that extra muscle. But
Hmm.
the funny thing is that they'll hire movers, and those movers are usually men. So
Exactly.
it's very
Yep,
interesting. Yeah.
yep.
How are you doing, Nina? I know you.
Very good. Very good. I am enjoying the cold weather and I've had a good week. I've honestly had a good week. Very, very good week. So
Okay, okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to have you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves first. Who you are, how many children do you have, if you have any. If you're a grandmother right now, please do say so. Okay, but
there are
just
no
tell
grandmothers on here.
tell us who you are. You don't have to say what you do, just how many children you have, and what are you hoping to get out of the conversation or to contribute to the conversation. Any of you ladies could start. That's fine.
Mama TJ, you go first. I'm interested about hearing about you after all the influence you've had.
Oh, that's hilarious. Thank, thank you. I am TJ Randolph. I am a mother and grandmother. I'm a wife, mother, and grandmother. I'm a new grandmother. Well, in the sense that I only have one child, a daughter, and she gave birth to my granddaughter in April. So
Oh,
she'll be 1 year this coming April. But I already had three bonus grandchildren that I actually had before my grandchildren through my husband. So I had an opportunity to learn being a grandmother before little Nick got here with my other grandchildren.
Hmm.
And I have three bonus children with my husband, and all three of them are grown. So all of our children are grown.
okay.
My other grandchildren, and I have. Oh, also to me. And I just retired from the federal government in October, and I just started my YouTube channel in May of 2021, and I'm just enjoying kind of sharing my stories, sharing my lessons, and learning from people as well. So that's me.
Okay. And Mama Teacher just hit her 1K mark on her YouTube channel, right? Congratulations.
Thank you. Next.
Go ahead, Nina.
So I am Nina Farrell. Um, I am a 18 years this year. I've been in education for the past 18 years, so I have lots of children. I have carried one child, a son. So Mama T, we have that in common. We only have one child. He is out in my living room being 24 with muscles and a mustache. What else can I say? I do have passionate about parenting. It's my LLC, and I work with teen moms. In addition to, I do tutoring and I provide advice on elderly care. as I am also a mental health advocate, as my mom suffers from mental illness. She's been that way my entire life. So those are just a few things that are important to me. And I honestly just feel like if we don't fight for the children, who will? That's my, if we don't fight for the children, if we don't stand for them, then we don't stand for much. So that's just honestly how I feel. And that's kind of my guiding principle behind being in education for so long, and the positions that I've held, and even me launching the LLC, passionate about parenting and doing the tutoring and working with teen moms. I was a teen mom. That's why I look 18 and my son is 24. But yeah, so just all about the transition. There are a lot of things that I kind of feel like with parenting, we Frankenstein it. Like, I kind of find what works here, and apply those things, and it rapidly changes. So just kind of being an advocate for like you can do it. My profile on Instagram says I'm a mom-tivator, just encouraging moms to just kind of continue to be great, and because it's not always going to be that way, but just for them to keep on pushing. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. Hey, Alkama, welcome. You're on mute.
Okay. Hello. Greetings, family. How you guys doing?
So what we're doing is we're just asking you guys to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how many children you have. That's pretty much it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. First, let me apologize for my tardiness. I am a working mom. I'm out here working now as we speak. So I am Alpamar. I have 2 adult children, and I am an entrepreneur. So I do a myriad of different things, and yeah. So I'm a little discombobulated. Forgive me, but I'm just looking forward to adding to this discussion.
All right. Good. Okay. So I'm going to just get right into it, ladies. Okay, let's do this. All right. For those of you guys who are watching, subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you hit the like button on your way in. If you haven't hit it on your way in, go back out, hit it, and come back. Okay. Make sure you share. Follow me on Instagram, and if you're feeling generous, feel free to send me a cash app at Goddess Hanifa. It would be much appreciated. So now that we've gotten those things out the way, let's get right into it. All right. So I sent you guys some questions, not in any particular order. So we're going to jump around a little bit. But I want to start off with this question. Who taught you how to be a mother? Where did those instructions come from? The reason why I asked this question is because oftentimes there is no, unless you went to a parenting class, there is no seminar or workshops. Okay. For the most part, we are winging it. For the most part, we are using the tools that we've inherited from our mothers and our grandmothers and the community. So I wanted to ask you guys this particular question, because when I ask this, I mean, like, it could be from anywhere. It could be television, your mother, your father, your uncle, whoever. So I want you guys to answer. Who taught you how to be a mother? Where exactly did those instructions come from? And anyone could start.
Ooh. Okay, so I'll start. When I read that question, I actually said, well, we're missing the word not in parentheses, because a lot of times it's okay, well, who taught you how to be a mother? For me, I just found, so of course there's a community, but because my mom suffered from mental illness, there were a lot of things that I did not get. So in me being a teen and raising my son, I just first started with the things that I felt as a child I was missing. And I don't mean material things. Like, my mom had mental illness. There's nothing I can do about that. But I was an excellent student. I was on honor roll, but she never came to any of my award ceremonies or any of those things because she was afraid of being outside. So when I became a parent, I made sure that it doesn't matter what my son was doing, that I showed up. So for me, yes, I had role models. But a lot of it for me, like, I was Frankensteining it. I was just kind of, this works here, let me get it. This works here, let me try it. This works here, let me try it. Yes, there were people that I think that every mom I'm using the word ignorance lightly, is a good mother, because you're just doing the best that you can until you come across something that maybe is better or that may work better for your situation.
Good point.
Yeah, like, you're just operating in, like, okay, well, this is my here and now. This is my situation now. What's the best I can do? Not everyone does that. If we're, like, if we're being completely honest, some of them just continue on this. They know better, but they refuse to do better. But
Mhm.
for me, like, who taught me to be a mom and where did those instructions come from? For me, it just became, okay, well, what did I feel I was missing? Not materials, but like what feeling, what voids did I have that I want to make sure like my son does not have? And that's, for me, that's what it was, just kind of filling in the things. That's where I started
Oh,
showing up, showing up. So it didn't
yeah,
matter what it was, but I wanted to make sure that no matter what it was, she always felt supported. He always knew
yeah,
that my mother is coming, till it became his catchphrase, like, let me ask, because if I call my mother, like, my mother is coming. Or so like, and being that, because a lot of times, like, as adults, we don't have like that feel safe. Like, because even now, like, I practically raised my mother. Like, I've been taking care of my mom from maybe like fifth grade. So I kind of
mhm.
raised her per se. So it's like, like, who is my feel safe? Like, where's the feel safe there? Like, but so my son can always be like, no, like, you will always feel supported here by your mom, well, by your parents, by
Yeah,
both. Like, you will always feel supported here. You can always run and come here, and
yeah,
we will support you, and we will be like your first line of defense. And even if it means that you're going to jail, just know that I'm going to be here with you processing that, or whatever it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
So that's
Okay.
it for me.
Okay. Okay, that's fair enough. And you were a young mom, and we're gonna get a little deeper into the conversation. TJ, what about you?
Well, it's interesting. I think I second a lot of this sentiment that I'm sorry, swear, what are your name again?
Nina.
Nina
Nina.
said. Um, but it's interesting because I was the first of my friend group to have a child. And I thought that I was actually kind of old, but I guess when I consider the talk that goes around now, I was actually young because I had my daughter at 27, but I was the first in my friend group to ever have a child. So, and my mom had me as a teenager, and when I had my daughter, I was in California. My mom was in Oklahoma. So, a lot of it, you read the books, what to expect when you're expecting, what to expect the first year, and all that kind of stuff. And then life happens, and you kind of throw it out the window. Um, so I just, kind of using a military phrase, I just kind of learned trial by fire, quite frankly.
Mm.
And to your point, Nina, because my mom had me and my sister by the time she was 19, my mom worked in multiple jobs, so she couldn't go to a lot of things, um, no teacher parent conferences, those kind of things. And so to your point, I made it a point to be at my daughter's everything.
Mm.
Even when I was in the military, I made it a point to go to everything. So it got to a point, it was so funny that you mentioned this because I remember one time in high school, it was a possibility I wasn't able to come to something, just a possibility. But because it was her norm that I was always there, she almost had a meltdown. So I think because again, that is what I had shown her that I was always going to be there. I was going to, to your point. Um, I just say trial by fire because, so of course, in certain things, my mom was able to help me with because, learning from the mistakes that she made to try to steer me in the right direction,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, but I knew that I was a kid that always needed a lot of attention and, uh, and I wanted to make sure and needed a lot of affection and attention. And my
Mhm.
mom, who was raised by my grandfather, they weren't very affectionate. I knew that she loved me, but she wasn't very affectionate, like I love you and hug you and hugs like that. So I did a lot of that with my daughter. I
Mhm.
wanted her to know, how much, she never doubted. We had our issues as as teenagers and parents do, but I wanted her to know that mom is always here, kind of like
Yeah.
you said.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alkama, because I do want to respond to something both TJ and Nina said. Go ahead, Alkama. You can answer the question. Do you need me to put it up again?
Who taught me how to be a mother?
Uh-huh.
Where did those instructions come from?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say the world, my community. Um, trial by error. Somebody put it so eloquently. All the above. You know, I was a very young mother. I had my son when I was barely 17, and my mother was a teenage mom.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, you know, although, you know, it was 8 of us growing up, my mom had 8 children, and I had a loving, doting father, you know, in the household for the majority of my growing up. And and even after he you know was a steady figure in my life. But my mom, she did a good job. I think she did a good job with us, as well as to be expected. You know,
Mhm.
she came from a rough upbringing, and so, you know, trial by error. I took what I had, and I used what I knew.
Mhm.
You know, my aunt was a very pivotal person in my life as well. She taught me a lot about how to be a woman, and in turn aided in my motherhood. You know, but yeah, I would just say in a nutshell, I just grabbed the information where I could find it and used it.
Yeah. One of the things that as I was listening to you guys, what came to my mind is how much so many of our mothers, we don't know their stories. We it's almost like we come into their lives at a certain point in their life, and we know them from that point on, right? But
Mhm.
there's a them that existed before that point, right? And there is things that they've been through that led up to that point. So your mom being a teen mom, my mom was a teen mom as well. What led up to that? And I'm gonna share with you guys even at some point how that transformed my relationship with my mother, understanding her story and learning her story. It
Mhm.
really helped me to put things into perspective, and also removing her, well, experiencing her outside of her mother role, but just as her name is Lynette, as Lynette. Who is Lynette? Not who is my mother, who is Lynette, because sometimes that is two different people. And I
That
had to learn that, and it
yep,
helped me in my relationship with her. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's human.
yep, yep,
Wow,
yep,
would
yeah,
not have known.
yep,
So
yep.
that's important as well, and we're going to get into that. All right, I'm going to move on. So what parenting tools did you inherit from your culture or family dynamic that you've chosen to get rid of in your own parenting approach? And that was it. This one, you could throw anything. It could be more than one. I know I have a couple of them. A lot of people call it breaking generational curse, whatever you want to
Listen,
call it. Just the things that you just said. You know what? That ain't it. I am not carrying this into my role as a mother. We're going to leave that there. Right. And I know we don't leave everything behind. There are some things we take with us, whether consciously or subconsciously, and whether deliberately or not, we still take it with us. And then there are those that we're just like, I'm not doing this because that's unhealthy. So you guys can jump on that question in no particular order. You know what? Let's start with Alkama.
Oh, you caught me off guard. Oh man.
It's all right.
What comes to mind? That chosen to get rid of in my own parenting approach. You know, it doesn't, what comes to mind really doesn't fall under the mommy spectrum more than it does the daddy spectrum. So, but,
Okay.
I'll share. I think that growing up, I was given maybe too much freedom. And there is such a thing, too much, the lack of structure, I
Hmm.
think, was not so helpful. And I think that looking back at my childhood, and I'm thinking that if I had, because I kind of, repeated the patterns of my own parents when I raised mine, and I didn't pull on the reins as much as I think I should have, looking
Hmm.
back. And that can cause a lot of issues in and of itself. Just not having enough structure in the household, not the laying down rules and guidelines and sticking to them, and that can cause a child sometimes to go awry. They can go awry because they don't have those lines, that should be put in place by those who are parenting them. So that is what comes to mind. The first thing that comes to mind for me.
So you decided to you decided to be a little bit more structured with your children.
My grandchild.
Oh no. No, that's honest, because we're gonna talk about that as well, because there's a lot of mothers, and whether they're listening or just even amongst ourselves, where they know better now, but their children are already raised. And I want to talk about that, because I feel like there's sometimes they could feel guilt, but there's still a place for them. And we're going to get into that as well, right?
That was a lesson I learned late in life.
Yes.
So my children were already grown by the time I figured that out.
Yeah.
Trial and error.
Yeah, and that's honest. Thank you. Teacher, you can go ahead.
Well, it's interesting because my mom has always said that grandchildren are a parent's second chance. And I think when you think about it, it makes sense, because, when my grandfather was alive, and the things that he would allow me and my sister to do, my mom and aunt said that they were never allowed to do. The things that my mom, that my mother allowed her grandchildren, my daughter and nephews and stuff, to do, she never allowed us to do. But again, so it's because you have that understanding. You have the understanding and you have the patience, for one, that you didn't have when you were in the throes of parenting. When I think, it's interesting. I'm not really sure what I would get rid of. Okay, there's some.
Take your time.
When I was growing up, I would get whipped a lot. Okay. I was one of those kids that was always in trouble.
I was. You're kidding. No.
And I was always going to push the envelope. So I said when I had my child, I wasn't going to yell, and I wasn't going to whoop her, because my mom, again, was a young mom. She had me at 17, and so my mom yelled a lot, she whooped me, So I had structure because I wanted that for my daughter, because in some instances, I think me and my sister were exposed to things far too early in our lives. We saw things that we probably shouldn't have seen at that age. But in as much as I aimed to not do those things, as yell and spank, when it became frustrating and overwhelming, as parenting does, especially if you're doing it by yourself, sometimes I reverted to those things.
Yes.
And it became traumatic for my daughter. I would say to her, well, it's nothing like what I got. But I had to, say, so what? It was nothing like I got. But each child is different. I always use that comparison about the Jackson kids. Supposedly, they were all subjected to the same corporal punishment. But for some reason, Michael Jackson affected him more. So everybody can get the same punishment, but it affects each child differently. So that is one thing that I wish that I hadn't, fell back into. And I guess I didn't have the parenting skills or the patience to not revert back to what I knew. But thankfully, I do have the foresight now as a grandmother, and I'm watching my daughter with her daughter, even though she's, not even a year yet. But there are some things I can see that she wants to do differently, and she's already doing differently, even from a very young state. What I don't regret, though, to Alkamar's point, I always had structure. And I think a lot of it because I was in the military and I demanded it. My daughter knew if I had to go up to that school for anything other than honor roll, we're going to have a situation. She thought I had eyes everywhere. She had she had chores, and again, didn't like them. But again, because of that, I'm seeing her now. She had a job at 14. She didn't need one, but I wanted her to know how to earn her own money.
Mhm.
So there's some things that part I wish I wouldn't have fell back into, but for the most part, I think, even though I fumbled quite a bit, but I think I'm all right with what I did with her.
Yeah, and what's interesting? You said something that made me jot down a note real quick, and this is probably more so because I know Nina, you're a boy mom. I'm a boy mom. And Alkama, you have a daughter. TJ, you have a daughter. This may be more with mothers and daughters than it is with mothers and sons. This thing, I wrote down: parents constantly comparing their past selves with who their children currently are. I see that a lot, where parents be like, when I was your age, I could have never, right? Or when I was your age, I did not talk to my mother like that. And the reality is that your child is not you. And I've said this many times to friends and people around me. Your child is not you. You're gonna have to let that go at some point. I know they came from you, right? But they are not you. They're not wired exactly the same way that you're wired, right? Even being faced with similar situations, their responses are not going to be identical to yours. But I find that it happens probably more so with mothers and daughters than mothers and sons, because I can't see me saying that to my son. Like when I was 16, like I don't see me saying that, but I have seen it happen with the mother-daughter dynamic as well. Nina, you can
And
go.
it happens from fathers to sons, though.
Oh yes, it does. Okay.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
does happen with fathers to sons,
Okay.
and the fathers will just hit the son in the chest. But yeah, because again,
It's the same gender thing.
yeah,
It happens
it's the
It's a
same
gender
gender.
thing. Okay.
So my answer to that question is actually something that I currently use with my parents, and it's because, Hanifa, of our cultural upbringing. It is, and this is the phrase, and I'll explain it. So it is shaming to do right instead of praising to keep them from doing wrong. So culturally, we or my experience has been like, to keep your child from doing something, you talk about all the negative things about it in a nasty voice. And if you go outside and run around with those girls, those fast girls, you're going to end up pregnant, or something worse. And that is shaming to get them to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Instead of praising the right things that they have done to keep them doing the right thing. So that's what it is for me. It's like, shaming to keep them from shaming them into doing right instead of praising them to keep them from doing wrong.
Yeah.
And that's something that, because I remember, like, when I got pregnant, I remember every single thing a cousin said to me that was horrible. I remember everything an aunt or a relative or someone I remember everything. I remember when I got my son in 9th grade. So I started 9th grade with books, bag, and a belly. And I remember going back to school. And yeah, I literally remember going back to school and the attendance counselor not giving me a pass because she said to me, when she was in school, girls that had children, they were women and they didn't come back. Okay, so I know, so I guess that was that all falls in line with that. So with my son, like, I would highlight the things that he did great. Or like, in me always showing up. Now, I second that, TJ. My son thought that I was everywhere. And because I've been in education for so long, I was a teacher. Our island is 32 square miles. You literally become, Hanifa for Lynette. That is who you become. You no longer have a name. So Jamoy, who Jamoy? For Miss Farrell, the one that teaches at Lockhart, that's who's your mom, because that's who you become. So I don't know, like, here, Hanifa, if you found that to be the case, but I know for us, like, culturally, like, coming from smaller islands or smaller communities, you become you are your parents.
Yeah, and for the people that's listening, I think if you live in and we say the mainland, but if you live in the States, that's like growing up in a small town. Growing up on the island is just like growing up in a small town where everybody know each other. So what she's talking about, where it's like, who do you mean? TJ for such and such, whatever your mother's name is. Like, just everyone knows each other. That's all it is. Go ahead, Nina, when you finish.
Yes, yeah. So definitely for me, and I wanted to just kind of highlight TJ saying the discipline. It does make a difference. I did make my son work early because I had him young. I made him, and that's where maybe my parenting, that's where my guilt comes from with that other question. Just kind of making him do certain things at a younger age in my mind I know it's going to help him later, because I know I can see, like, the fruits of my labor of me making sure, like, he knew how to do certain things and making sure I provided like some level of structure. However, I know that I can also see where probably that was probably too early for him. Or probably I needed to wait and let him experience certain things first before I gave him that. So I mean, well, we'll get to that, because I know that's one.
We will.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you guys do most of the talking, because I'm really interested in what you guys. I'm really here to just like to receive today. But I wanted to move on to the other question of what are some ways Black women are judged harshly as mothers, just from you guys' own observation. Nina, you already started, but okay, TJ, go for it. Go for
it, TJ. Get it.
Listen, nothing makes my ass hurt more than when I see a mother who lashes did, hair did, nails did, and your kids running around like damn banshees.
I'll give you one more. Lashes did, hair did, everything did. And when the kids come to school, baby, all the bags having is snacks. Not a pencil, not a notebook, not a nothing. And on top of that, they're in school dirty and without a coat in this cold weather.
That right there,
that they need.
That's trifling. That's trifling. It disgusts me. So yes, I'm not even gonna fake it. I do.
Fine.
I judge, because again, how dare you?
So here's the thing with that.
I'm going to be devil's advocate when Nina is done. Go ahead.
Here's the thing with that. Okay. It's a mindset I want to see. Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
You don't know that what you're doing wrong, that like we can sit and say that. And that's why I try to hold on to my small housing community upbringing, because certain things you don't know it's wrong if within your proximity that is the norm.
Yeah.
So if all your friends are doing that same thing, you don't know that you're supposed to be looking out for this baby and making sure this baby have a coat, because all your other friends are trifling, relatively, or toxic, or what have you. So that's the thing. Like, at what point of when you know better should you do better? And do you know what it takes to get over there? Because I'm with you on that.
Are you guys seeing this with? I feel like this happens more with younger parents.
No.
Okay.
No. They make it all the way to 44, 50, and the grandmother does it. The grandmother, listen, I literally have grandmothers that have had BBLs to look like their daughters or to get back their younger selves. Like,
there was one on divorce court yesterday. I'm just saying.
You saw it too, TJ.
You know what? I really want to ask about that. I have heard so many times about mothers being jealous of their daughters.
Oh, listen.
I did not know that was a thing. I did not know it was a thing until I hear people talk about it. Like, I mean, there are people who talk about their mothers sabotaging their education because they were really smart in school. I mean, I've never seen it. I've heard a lot of stories. Have you guys heard those stories or know of them?
My very first year when I relocated here, loosely the story was the mom was upset with the daughter because her new boyfriend was the problem.
Okay.
So all of their friction was because the mom is looking at her daughter like, hey, you are the younger, prettier, whatever version of me. And that is who I used to be. And I am afraid that he may look at you like a kind of way because that's not your dad. But so that in itself, and it happens with fathers and sons. It happens. They sabotage their education. They sabotage. I mean, they're very friendships. Like, don't hang around with Miss TJ. She and her mom thinks they all that. when really it's an internal thing. It's really
Yeah.
an internal thing that
Yeah.
you're projecting. But again,
Wow.
like if you don't know that that is the wrong thing, if nobody has tapped you on the shoulder and said this is not how you used to be, that this is not how you should be, that is a generational thing that was probably passed down.
Yes.
There's so many things, and that's one of the main reasons why parenting in the Black community or parenting on a whole for women is so hard,
Yeah.
because you are fighting with all that whoever Lynette was before Hanifa,
Mm-hmm.
that's who is fighting. So she is that person in addition to now being Hanifa's mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood.
And that is what the fight is. The fight
Yeah.
has nothing to do with you as the child, but the child becomes the carnage.
Yeah.
The prisoner of that, the prisoners of that.
Yeah, they become casualties of
Yeah.
that internal war that
Yep.
that person is going through. How
Yep.
come I know you're coming back? We're just talking about what are some ways Black women are judged harshly as moms, and TJ and Nina were talking about mothers who are dressed to the T, hair done, everything, and their children look like ragamuffins, whether it's in school, out in the streets. TJ was just like, it grinds her gear. Like she's what about you, Alkema? What have you observed?
Oh man, I don't know. I was sitting there thinking about the question as it came across the stream, and I mean, I don't know. I think we just judge harshly overall, as
General?
Black women, really, and so yeah. So I really don't have a whole lot of input on that particular one.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, for me personally, I don't have one specific one, but I do know that in the society that we live in, there isn't much grace shown to Black mothers. And I've worked in child welfare for over 12 years. So I know what that looks like, where, children are taken away from, parents and so forth and so forth. So I do know, I don't want to say it's a higher standard. I think that there is low expectations, or even low expectations projected onto Black mothers oftentimes, where and then there's some cultural piece involved as well that is misinterpreted or misunderstood, right? I'm trying to think of one.
And you know what it is too,
Go
just
ahead.
adding to what you said about the higher expectation. It's because somewhere along the lines, people feel like, okay, yes, you went through slavery or what have you, but all of these things the government provides for you.
Right. But just get over it.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You have all of these things that the government gives to you. You get, like, the cash assistance, the this assistance, but it doesn't apply to everybody, because the problem is not the things that the government provides. It's in here.
Yeah.
There's nothing that fixes what's happening in here. Nothing. That is the work that you have to do yourself.
Yes.
You have to do that.
Yes. And you have to have access to the resources to be able to do that, and the tools. And not I had to learn this. Not everyone does. Go ahead. Go ahead, TJ. I see your finger.
It's interesting. I keep saying it's interesting, but before my mom moved us to Oklahoma City in the late 70s, I was born and we lived in Los Angeles. And we lived in the area of, I guess would be considered South Central Los Angeles, had a lot of family members in Compton, lived in the jungle. But my mom knew that had we stayed there, it probably wouldn't have been the best outcome for me and my sister. And so because my grandfather had moved to Oklahoma, we moved to Oklahoma. And I'm grateful for that, because my mother, she knew that she needed something that she knew the environment was not going to be a good one for us. So when people look at me and they see or whatever the education, and they learn of what I did or whatever, they're surprised to know that, prior to moving to Oklahoma, we were homeless for like 6 months, living with our clothes and bags and going from house to house to house. But to your point though, even though we were poor, there was a standard, even though my mom wasn't even able to live up to it for the most part, because my grandfather set it.
Okay.
He set the standard, so she knew what it looked like. We did not run around like we didn't have a home. Even when we were homeless, we had manners. We were clean. Sometimes we were hungry. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes we were hungry. But my mom was not one of those mothers that you see out looking all fabulous and the kids look like ragamuffins. It is something about a sense of pride that is missing. So when I say judge, and y'all can go ahead and be mad if you want to, but I'm gonna keep it. I'm just tell you how like it is. Growing up, Black kids knew better when you went outside, when you went out in public. Black kids knew, don't you touch nothing. If you ain't got no money, you stay your behind right here next to me. When all the other kids were running around acting, we knew it wasn't out. They weren't ours. We can't say that no more.
Why not? What has happened? In your opinion? In any of y'all opinion? What has
the media, weaving, sandling, nails, hip hop videos, the living this social media life, fast money. I want to show you what I got and I ain't got nothing. That is what's happening because the focus is taken off of your children and so everybody else sees this facade of what it really is, and you're jacked up. Because here's the thing, me and my sister had our issues anyway, but it wasn't them. My mom, like I said, we was hungry sometimes, but it still didn't. There were rules. There are no rules. Anything goes, and people could correct your children back then. Not necessarily put your hands on them.
Oh no, I got you.
Say, hey, look, don't touch that little girl. Put that down.
Okay.
Can't do that no more.
I'm going to go right into my question so how you guys could jump in on this since we're talking about this. Now, if you were to define a toxic mother in your own words, what would your definition be? You guys could just throw some words out. Go ahead, Alkema.
I think the word toxic is relative.
Okay.
I think a lot of the words that we use are relative.
Okay.
Because if you don't know, because you know what TJ just said, even though that was going on with her mom was provided with, even though she wasn't able to live up to it, she already knew what it looked like. So she had something to aspire to. A lot of these moms that I'm in the classroom now, and a lot of them, they have nothing to aspire to. They're not and what you said about not only like social media, we grew up in an age I'm an 80s baby, and we grew up in an age where we had like the Cosby Show and we had all of these things. There's literally really no show showing us. So if it's that within my proximity, all I'm seeing is the girl downstairs of me does latches. All of us have had a BBL, and there's where are the people that want, where are the children, or where is the construct or the programming that says go be a teacher, still go be a doctor. Everybody everybody has their own, but everybody won't be able to make wigs, and like you said, or do nails. Where is that? And I agree with you. Like initially it was in the programming. Okay. I am a teacher because Reading Rainbow and PBS was my favorite show. From the time I heard Butterfly in the Sky, I was taking it down the hallway. And to this day, I still love reading. I know Ziggy Marley sang, the Hey Arthur song. I love Lamb Chop's Play Along.
Right.
Like all of these things. And I get it. Coco Melon and all of these give the same kind of response, but the content is not doing anything for them. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, listen. But the content
Captain Kangaroo
is not doing anything for them. Even right now, we have something in school called CEL. It's social and emotional learning. You know what CEL was growing up for me as a child? Barney's, what is it, Barney? I love you.
Okay.
You love me.
Yeah.
So and in these things, we are teaching the children on a whole. what these things are, like, you know, how to process feelings, and there's no programming at all. Like you said, if it's not on TikTok in a dance.
I'm gonna let Algamar jump in because I have a little bit of a pushback to what you guys are saying. I have a question actually. Okay. Go ahead, Algamar.
I would define toxicity as destructive behavioral patterns, whatever that is. Whatever, if the pattern creates something that's destructive in the life of the child, then that's toxic. Okay. And so that could be a myriad of different things. So, and I agree with Nina when she mentioned, you know, a lot of the, I think it was Nina who did mention the social construct today. You know, that's so different than when we were growing up, and so different when our parents were growing up. And so the, you know, it's like the influences that's all around, and it becomes difficult, you know, when the morality, the moral, it becomes moral decay in society. More and more and more, and it's like you're fighting against, you know, right from wrong. But when your child walks out that door, they're hit with everything around them is moral decay. So it becomes a battle. You know, it becomes a battle. And that's why when I hear like some parents will say things like, well, you just raise your child the way you're supposed to raise your child, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Well, your child still have, unless you're living in a bubble, you know, in a secluded bubble, your child still have to, you know, they turn the TV on, they listen to the radio, they go to school, they have peers, they, you know what I'm saying? So you, and a lot of people are just becoming accustomed to moral decay. And it's become their life. And like you said, when your child don't know anything different, you know, they've grown up in an environment in a time where the decay is the norm. It's not the exception to the rule, it is the rule. And so it's like they looking at you like, what's wrong with me doing this and doing that? Everybody else do it. So
can we do a better job though? Because I think I don't know if it's TJ or Nina that spoke on it a little earlier about parents, and we're talking about Black motherhood, mothers being distracted by social media. They're on there trying to be celebrities, trying to be seen, trying to be heard. So don't you think that we could do a better job at perhaps gatekeeping the minds of our children? I am not saying, I agree with you, Alkama, that society has a responsibility as well. But the child leaves your home. The first place that child is at is in your home, right? So for me, my question to you guys is, can't we do a better job at gatekeeping the mind of our children by not just sitting them in front of the TV, not just letting them have a free for all on social media, maybe monitoring those things as best as we can? Do you think that we could probably tighten up in that area as parents, as mothers?
Here's the statement. That's the answer. That's the problem with that thought.
Okay.
Do what I say, not what I do. That is the problem with that. Because of course you know right from wrong. Right. Of course your child should know when they go outside to not listen to this person and do this whatever. But if they're seeing you do it, or they're seeing that around you, it's not going to just assimilate into them, because it's not going to just assimilate into them. Because
I agree. I agree. And that's what I'm saying is that like for me, when I talk about children on social media, I always say the children are watching. The children are watching, and they are actually listening. And I know this is going to sound crazy, listening more to what you do than what you say. They are paying attention. What you do is always louder than what comes out of your mouth.
But people don't know that.
Right.
That's the problem. They don't know that.
Right. But here's the thing though. If you are distracted by social media and you are so consumed with it, right? And you're so consumed with certain entertainment on television, what do you think is going to happen with your children?
But if you don't know you're consumed by it, because that's what I'm saying, like it is such the norm that they don't know that they are consumed with social media.
So how do we
I get the question.
How does one eventually get to see that what they are doing in this case as a parent is wrong? How does that happen?
that's the thing. That is why we need to have these conversations,
Right.
because because the correction comes with the grandchildren. That's where that statement comes from. The correction comes with the grandchildren, because by then you've already made all the mess ups. You've already messed up. So now well, oh my goodness, you already, like, your heart. Oh God, I don't know if hardened is a word that they use on the U.S. mainland, Hanifa, but help me with
hard-headed.
So it's like, you don't get it until after you can stop, you can hit a brick wall, but there's not a lot of us. For every one person that hits the brick wall and tries to make a difference, there are about 30 or 40 people that have not hit the brick wall. I tell just like when you're driving on the road, you're not driving for you, you're driving for other people.
Right.
When I tell my teen moms, when you are raising your children, you're not raising your children for you,
Right.
You're raising your children so when they go outside, when they are not around you, they can function, and they can dodge this, and they could be like Neo in the Matrix, and they can adjust where necessary, and express empathy, and just be grateful, or like, that's what you are doing. Like, you are the processing center for everything that your child comes across. And I think more so, that is what people need to understand. Black moms need to understand with mothering. You are the processing center. You are like the CPU for the computer. Every time they come home and they come home with an attitude or a behavior, your job is to help them kind of process that. Okay, process it, apply it, and keep it moving. But then you still have to do that while still adjusting yourself. Because you're adjusting to this life because you have to adjust to this life at 10 times the rate of your child. Or because what happens is the kids go ahead. They move ahead of you.
Yes, and I'm glad go ahead. 1 minute, Alcom. I'm glad you brought that up. But Alcom, I'll go ahead and then I'll speak.
I just wanted to mention something she said, and I think that's why it's important not to allow the community off the hook, because we can do but so much as a isolated entity in a home. You know what I'm saying? It's still a responsibility when our children leave the home, that for other parents and other community members to be doing their part and their fair share too. Or it becomes a situation where it's like, how do you heal in the midst of toxicity? How do you know what I'm saying? You're healing yourself, but everything around you is a cesspool. You know what I'm saying? How much benefit is that going to be if we're not creatures that we're social creatures by nature? And so, socially, how does that benefit? And I'm doing okay, but then everybody else around me is in a toxic gook, a soup. So it doesn't. So that's why I think we can't let the community completely off the hook, because we all have a responsibility. Every last one. That's why a child that comes from a really, really great home, and parents are doing all they can and they're getting all they need at home, but they go to school and they get bullied or what have you, and the next thing you know, you find out a child like that commits suicide. Because especially at an age when you're impressionable, and where your peers and things like that mean so much to you. And although the parents are doing all they can, but they're being pulled from the environment, and that sometimes can be detrimental. So I think it's a holistic approach to the problem.
Agreed. TJ, you was trying to say something?
Well, I was going to ask, when you say can't let the community off the hook, give me an example of what that looks like.
An example, like I just mentioned, like if I'm doing all I can on behalf of my child and pouring into them all I know to do, keeping them out of a toxic situation within the home, but they're at a school somewhere that they're being bullied. They're being bullied left and right. And so, you know what I'm saying? How much?
Well, the school's not doing anything on they're not protecting kids.
Why are children even bullying mine? What are the parents of that household doing to prevent all that from happening? So
that's a whole other issue, though.
Oh yes,
my child is still suffering.
Despite that's a whole other issue, because and again, I'm not an educator, so you all correct me if I'm wrong. their hands are so tied. They can't do anything. It astounds me. Because again, I'm growing up when say for instance, I got in a fight with somebody or somebody was bullying me, the principal called both the parents in with the kids. Mm-hmm. Now they don't tell you who it is. Mm-hmm. They can't tell you who. So the hands are tied. And even if a teacher tries to break up a fight, they run the risk of being arrested or losing their jobs. So, it is so mind-boggling, because even if a teacher, because I grew up in a time when teachers weren't just our teachers, they were our surrogate parents too.
Yes. Yep.
Our surrogate parents, uncles, aunts, all that. So we don't have any of that anymore. Mm-hmm. So again, part of it, and again, I made my mistakes with my daughter, but I talked to her about everything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything, because let's be real. Peer pressure is nothing new, and everything is relative. Mm-hmm. What we're dealing right now, what these kids are dealing with right now, is the norm for them, and it's relative. But when you all, because I know y'all younger than me, y'all had y'all equivalent of the peer pressure.
Yeah.
And so did I. But one of the differences, and I don't know why this is,
okay,
but kids nowadays, they're not able to deal with the stresses of the peer pressure, because bullying is not a new thing either.
I agree.
It's not isolated. You see, before, even with Hanifa and I, like, we were in school at the same time. Mm-hmm. It was isolated. Now, if you are bullied in Florida, worldwide. In Alaska, they know.
That's true.
In the middle of Africa, in Nairobi, they know. In Australia, they know. And you have all of these, like, it's the influence. Mm-hmm. It's the influence. It's not just like, nothing is in isolation anymore. And just to kind of get back to what you were saying about not excusing the community, you can't. And for me, coming from a small island where, for the most part, that is a community construct.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's Hanifa for Lynette. Yeah. You go and find Lynette and tell Lynette this is what Hanifa has done. Right. Like, that to some extent, when I relocated here, going to work every day, this is how I feel. Because I'm like, if I care too much, it's considered inappropriate. If I don't care enough, is that I have to write a report and send it down to Hanifa's office talking about, well, if I know something and I don't say something, or if I even have like a little feeling that, hey, probably something was wrong and I don't say anything, I'm in trouble. So it's like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The parent is allowed to be rude. And like you said, within good reason, your child is being bullied. Before, we could have bring in both parents, but here's what happened. It doesn't stay at school. Mm-hmm. So many a times what would happen is, and I've experienced this, where, and you get into a little argument in school, your parents come in, they hash it out in the principal's office. But if you live in the same community, it's on the minute you get home.
Yes, it is.
On the minute you get home.
Yes, it is.
With social media or with everything, IP addresses and stuff, you think you're gonna go home? No. Tonight at 11 o'clock, we're gonna be outside and we're gonna throw rocks at your house, and in situations where they have access to guns. No,
I don't just say now who did it. I agree with you. It does not just stay at school.
It doesn't end there.
So we're gonna get into some growth talk in a minute, some personal growth talk as mothers, okay? But let me check my comments out first. I know a lot of people had some things to say. So we had What the Funk says, these kids are horrible, and I refuse to have my kids around the majority of these zombie ass kids. Ooh, that's really harsh words. What the Funk?
And see, and we have a habit of blaming the children too. We blame the children for the things that we need to accept responsibility for.
But here's the thing: not just the community is not the only one that blames the children. What I found as parents, and that's myself included, is that when we see something in our children that we know it's probably a result of us slacking in certain areas, instead of taking accountability and growing in that area, we blame the child. They just don't want to listen. They're hard-headed. Also, I see a lot of parents starting later on in their child's life when they're teenagers. I'm like, you gotta catch these children as far as when their brain is still developing, like instill deposit certain things into them. Once they hit 6, 7, right? There's certain things that you just have to get into your children. And I feel like a lot of people miss that window and they try to self-correct when the children are in their teenage years, which is the worst time to try to self-correct. It's just not gonna happen. So let me go through some quick questions. We see Nakia. She says this is a generation of hypersensitivity, overstimulation, and overexposure, and it shows in our children especially. And I think to TJ's point, honestly, TJ, I feel like a lot of the responsibilities that my mom, your generation, the responsibilities they had as children, the children today do not have. And it shows. It shows. You give them a little weight and they'll buckle under it. So that is something to put into perspective as well. Like both you and Nina talk about allowing your children to work early on, right? Not that they have to, but you wanted to instill something in them. It's not many people that's doing that. A lot of
people, because they don't realize that when you give children chores and you make them responsible at a very young age, when they become adults, when you hold them accountable for things, nothing phases them as they get older. They understand that they have responsibilities in this life, and it just shows up in different ways as they get older. It's developing the discipline. What happens is that they're leaving them just do anything to some extent, correcting them when they are embarrassed as the parents, instead of doing the preventative measures. And then like later on, like what was mentioned, it's just all over the place. Like we're waiting until the last minute, when if it's that we teach them little things like you need to have chores. You need to hold them accountable. You need to clean this room. When it's that age, you need to get a job, because you need to understand you need to understand that bread costs money.
But I think a lot of parents, especially depending on how you were parented, a lot of us are overcompensating, and it is damaging our children. So when I say that, it's like you are so adamant at making sure that you don't do what your mother did, that you end up overdoing it to your child's detriment, and to the detriment to your child's developmental detriment, actually. So what happens is we have a lot of maladaptive behaviors that show up in our parenting, right? And a lot of trauma that we are projecting onto our children, a lot of unresolved issues. And I think we end up coddling them, right? When we really don't need to be coddling them. Honestly, at least from my observation and from my experience, and I know for myself, I have to check it in myself as well. But I want to, and what the funk, I got you. You're right. I did.
Yes, please get on what the funk, please. Yes. No. I'm reading the comments like yes.
You missed a ton of other comments that led to me saying, and they are zombie ass kids and zombie ass parents. We are full of toxins. And the reality is that if the parents are full of toxins, that's going to be projected onto the children. But I want to move the conversation along. So I'm
glad they said we, though. I'm glad they used the word we in that comment.
Yeah, because sometimes we try to separate ourselves. All right. So we talk about toxic mothers, right? In retrospect, would you say there was a time when you were a toxic mother? Please explain.
Oh, yeah.
TJ, I see you shaking your head. Go for it.
Oh, yes.
Well, interesting that Nina talked about her mom having mental health issues. Well, I too have them. Okay. And I was diagnosed with mine in 2007. Well, prior to being diagnosed with mine, I was like this, and I did not know the chemical imbalances that were, contributing to that. So a lot of times, particularly by the time my daughter got into high school, because you have the adolescence change and the temperamental changes, and then you got a mama that's dealing with her temperamental and hormonal and, biological changes. And my daughter didn't know which mother she was coming home to from one day to the next. And you talk about that you were honor roll student. My daughter, honor roll student. She graduated. We were in Woodbridge, Virginia. She graduated from Woodbridge High School in Virginia, number 86 out of 600 kids. But in her life, people thought because she was well, less financially kid, because her father and I provided pretty well for her, but she was miserable inside largely because of me. Largely because of me. Sometimes being nervous, if something might set me off, till intervention was done, by her god moms, and from that point on, I said if I don't take nothing else, I'll take my medication because I don't want my child to be afraid of her mom.
That's a factor that, as we were talking, I'm glad that we are here right now, and then Nina introduced herself with that, just stating that about her mom, because that's a factor. Even with the children being dirty, like we were talking about, these are factors that people don't consider. Mental health, and I think there's a lot of mental health issues within the Black community that is missed, that is looked over, that is undiagnosed, that is being self-medicated on so many levels, okay? Whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever that is, that we don't consider. We're so quick, and I'm using the word judge here lightly, because I can't think of another word, but we're so quick to crucify other mothers without putting into perspective that there is a possibility that there's some mental health factors at play. A lot of times that happens. I've seen it with my own eyes in public. I've seen a video that went viral with a little boy that clearly was on the spectrum, and he was in a barber shop, right? And he was just cutting up, and all the Black men that were there was trying to help the mom. His shoe was in one direction, he was in the next, and the conversation became around mothers and how these mothers trying to be their children's friends, and I'm like, am I the only one that's seeing this boy is on the spectrum and this mom is struggling? Why are we not seeing that?
Because that knowledge is missing. That is the knowledge.
Yep. Nina, I actually think it's easier to actually come to a conclusion, a judgmental one, than it is to actually take the time, right, to actually talk to the person, get to know the person, or even do the research. It's just easier to look at a clip and analyze it and then go about our business. We do that to each other all the time. So I'm glad TJ brought that up, because I feel like that's a factor that's always missing in these conversations when you see parents struggling. And these are parents that might know something is going on, but come on now, mental health is still almost a taboo in our community. We are just getting around. We're kind of late in the game about talking openly about it. That's just a fact. And in some communities, it's still taboo. So someone is hearing voices, but they're not going to tell you that, right? They're not going to take the chances of their children being taken away. So what are they going to do? They're going to self-medicate. They're going to try to suppress those voices, right? And they're going to act like everything is okay, even though it's not. So I just wanted to add that in. So TJ, I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you for actually being very transparent and sharing that. Alkema, you were going to say something, and then we'll go to Nina.
Yeah, I was going to share that I can relate a lot to the being angry, and being a toxic mother, and not being aware of yelling, screaming, and hollering. That was my method of um, disciplining my children for some time in their childhood. To the point, and my son, bless his soul, he's the oldest, and my children are 5 years apart, and I had him at 17, and I like to tell people all the time, we grew up together, he and I. There was I'm 17 for crying out loud. Need I say more? And so and there was when they became teenagers, and it was a point in my life where it just seemed like nothing was going right for me in the realm of parenting. Everything that could go wrong was going wrong, and I felt overwhelmed. And I went, and Hanifa, you know this story. I went looking. I'm like, at this point, I need help. I knew I couldn't do this by myself anymore. And so I found a parenting class. Wasn't too far from where I lived at that time. And I applied. It was a 6-week course. And I went in that course thinking to myself, yeah, now I'm going to get the tools I need to fix them children. I'm gonna fix them now. Now that them broken children. Now that you know what I'm saying, they're gonna yeah. By the time that 6-week course was over, I came to the realization that they were fine. I was the one. I was the one that needed all the fixing. You know. So going back to even the comment that one of the folks said on the stream when they said all those children, them badass children, and all that stuff. I think we don't take enough introspect. We don't do enough inner looking enough to really realize that these children, all their behaviors are learned behaviors. All of them. All of them. So they had to come from somewhere. So we blame the children for just doing things that they've learned how to do. So yeah, so
and for being kids.
and for being children. It's our responsibility.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
We blame the children for that, yes, but we forget to extend grace to ourselves because we too are showing what we have learned. So I think like in like that realization of being like toxic, like the turnaround part is me just kind of realizing, well, okay, Nina. Okay, girl, like chill out, relax, come from 10 to 1. Okay, let's come down off of this is where like just to kind of to fix it and question me being a toxic mom. Me, are you kidding me? Hello. But I think that for me personally, honestly, I saw so much toxic. So I lived in the mom. Even now, my mom is 69. And if I don't get her medication just right, she still hears the voices. Like literally, I'm in my bedroom and it's right here. Like just like, so that is a constant reality for me. And I've been taking care of her from the time I've been in 4th or 5th grade. So this is a long process. This has been a very long process. So I understand TJ's daughter, and I understand that, and those are the things that kind of played into my parenting as well, because I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if I'm going to end up that same way. Like what happened to my mom that she ended up there, and am I going to end up that same way? So that was that's what I was holding on to. I don't want to be that. I don't want him to experience what I experienced. And not just in the showing up, but in the when life gets overwhelming and life gets too much, you forget that you're a mom because you yourself are dealing. At that point, there's no separation of my mom's name is Judith. There's no separation of Nina from Judith at that point. All I can be is Nina because Nina is who experiencing it. And my son is experiencing me responding to this thing that's happening. There's nothing saying, so I just had to be so mindful on edge. Like, okay, so that's where my my toxicity kind of came from. Like that little like paranoia, like I am experiencing this. I don't want to pass this on to him. But then what do I do? What do I do at this point? Like where do I go? Or what do I need to isolate myself? Do I need to, and learn behavior? So my mom, when I was little, when she would come home, or she would spend so much time like in her room, like locked away from people, that's my trait. So when I come home and I am frustrated, even to this day, I just come straight in my room and I say absolutely nothing and I close the door. That's my son knowing that mom needs to decompress. But initially he didn't know that. I had to say to him, listen, when I've had a hard day, I just need to come in and just spend some time in my room by myself. So you need to give mommy a minute. But while he was experiencing no conversation, that's like, because he now doesn't know what my mom is always so very supportive and talkative. And here it is now, she's not doing that. She's showing this behavior. So,
right.
But until we got to the place where I could explain that to him, Like, that's where the toxicity for me existed. Like, that's where it lives.
So,
Also, if I
go ahead,
may,
TJ, and then I'll speak to this comment. Go ahead.
I have to also add that the toxicity. My daughter saw me interact with her father.
Oh, I'm coming to
And,
that.
oh, okay, because that was a bad one too.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that just now.
Okay.
Because next week I have the fathers on, and I know they're not gonna play with us. I already know. So we're gonna talk about that. But I wanted to speak to Nakia's point. A lot of mothers remain toxic because we are always in survival mode. We are trying to keep our families fed, a roof over our heads, and we sacrifice our own health and well-being. Now, here's what comes to mind that introduces single motherhood to me when I read that comment. Okay. And I actually think that we have our rate of single motherhood in the Black community is too damn high. Okay. It is not the ideal situation for any child unless there is there is some harm that's being done to the child. Like the two people cannot exist in the same space because it ends up being detrimental to the child's well-being. But we have a lot of situations where people are hooking up, people are having casual sex, and babies are being born out of it. So now you have two people that barely know each other, right? And we're talking to them about, well, you should have stayed with the father of your child, or you should have stayed with the mother of your child. They didn't even know each other. They hung out for a couple of months, and a baby was the result. That's it. There's a lot of situations like that. And so
That's another show. I'm gonna come back for that one. Like, invite me back. I'm coming back for that. So please. I need to be on that panel.
I am so mad. All of you guys kind of raise your hand a little bit.
Let's just go on ahead and put that out there.
That's
another conversation that's not being had.
Being had. And that's what I'm saying. But it has to be had because it is affecting our community.
Yes.
The idea of that's TJ business. She got pregnant. She should have choose better. That's her business. And we're trying to separate TJ from ourselves is detrimental to the community, because what happens in TJ's home is going to affect my community.
Yes.
And if you're connected to that community, that means it affects my home as well. Yes. So the conversation of this individualism that we have around parenting, keep your child away from mine. And no,
none of my business.
Mind your business. I need you to take some parenting classes. I need you to teach your daughter not to just be hooking up. Okay, and babies are being born as a result of it. But I want to have the conversation because I saw the reaction. That is an issue that we're not talking about. Guys, let's talk about this. This casual hooking up that Black mothers, all right, are doing, and Black fathers, but we're talking about Black mothers today, are doing and not really taking responsibility for it, right? So now a child comes out and you are so surprised that this guy ain't worth shit. You didn't even take the time to know that he wasn't
flabbergasted.
Who knew? Flabbergasted. So let's talk about it. What is some of the things that we need to be doing better so that this don't continue to happen? And you guys can use yourself as an example. That's fine.
Yeah, I say that the education part, just allowing folks to understand, because now it's become normalized. It's normalized behavior. Anytime a girl, a woman, or anybody can come up pregnant, and people don't even ask no more. Oh, what your husband, the dad, they don't even ask them kind of questions no more. It's like almost expected that you are going to be raising this child with by yourself. And so I think just having a conversation about how detrimental this is to us all. We're not having these conversations. So I think that in and of itself can at least get the wheels going in the mind of our youth to even start to even reconsider some of the things that has become normalized.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes I think that when hmm, they just kind of look at, and I'm speaking in general terms, that they don't want to hear it from an old head like myself. I'll give you an example. I started talking to my daughter about sex when she was 6. You hear me?
Mm.
6.
Because that's the age you should. Because
Mm-hmm.
at that age, they're already feeling the tingling. They just don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know why, but the reason why I did it, because at the time I was on active duty in the military station in San Diego. My job was to swear in young boys and young men and women going into the military. Well, but the 3 years I was stationed there from 2000 to 2003. During my tour, at least 6 young people between the ages of 17 to 19 could not go into the military because they were HIV positive. And that's when they found out. You hear me? So then I started talking to my daughter about it because, again, these are kids,
Yeah.
you know? And my daughter, she would turn to, Mom, I don't even like boys. I mean, because she was, 6, playing with dolls. But I started talking to her about it then and over and over and over. So let's move forward when she got to high school. When her friends would come over, her young friends, I set them down and say, hey, this is what I told Danielle. But lo and behold, because even if you're open, even if you talk to your kids, they ain't gonna tell you everything. They're just not gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
So for the longest time, she had been telling me she wasn't sexually active, and I'm thinking we close. And she gonna tell me, because I said, if you feel like you want to do it, just come and talk to me. We'll go get some. She said, Mom, I'm gonna tell you. Well, when I found out that she had already done it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm mortified. But she said, Mom, I know she said, I'm sorry I lied. She said, but I always use protection because you've been talking to me about sex since I was this age. And she said some of my friends would even come and ask me because their parents weren't talking to them. So and again, she saw me struggling and she didn't want to be a single mama. But I started talking to her about sex at age 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have to start as early as possible, to be honest, because here's the thing. Sex is all around them. It's all around them. It's even implied in the Disney movies and so forth that they're watching. Like, it's everywhere. It's in advertisements, it's on commercials, it's everywhere. It's on billboards when they go out, it's on some of the products that you buy, magazines. I mean, it's all over. So you better bet, your best bet is you get to them before their peers do, because their peers be giving bad information. I mean, bad advice around sex. So you want to get to them before they do. So I agree with you on that, TJ. Before we move on, anybody else, Nina? I think you was trying to say something.
I was just gonna say that the retrospect, because as you said, we're talking about Black moms tonight, but the
Yeah.
retrospect in the, like, for the guys is they end up being labeled as deadbeat and end up in all of these situations when really and truly they are just they are caught off guard as the young lady is, but the young lady receives all the coddling.
That's
And the
very
young man
true.
gets, well, you're a deadbeat. Well, no, but he made a mistake too.
That's a good point.
Yeah, like he made a mistake too. But then, like, he don't have a job, he can't support it. The grandmother's gonna be like, take him to child support. Now he can't get a passport and all of these kinds of things when they made the same mistake. It was the same.
That's a very good point. And I'm gonna have a show around. Okay, so there's something that recently happened, and TJ, you might be more hip to this than Nina and Alkema. But there's a show, Fresh and Fit, right? That just said some things about how they feel about Black women, that they don't prefer Black women, and they stated why, right? And I've seen at least 3 or 4 content creators, women, uh asking people to deplatform them, giving them instructions on how to go about doing that, right? But today I was thinking on the other side, you have someone called Cynthia G in YouTube, that's talking about aborting baby boys. Okay. I have yet to see a woman talk about deplatforming her. I have yet to see a Black woman talk about getting her page taken down. My point is this, and I get very passionate about this because I have boys. We do not care about Black boys. And it translates into we don't care about Black men and what they go through.
Yep.
So what you just pointed out as far as, well, he made a mistake too. I'm glad you brought that up because I see it over and over again.
But that's the thing. See, we are sensitized to it because we have sons. So if you have a daughter, that's not the same thing. That's just like, you know, all we talk about, like, you know, what our kids are exposed to and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if you like, I don't know if it's a common expression, but I remember home a lot of times they used to say with a daughter, all she could do is come home and tell you she's pregnant. With a son, you're going to have all kinds of other things. But with your daughter, all she's going to do is come home and tell you that she's pregnant. That's the biggest thing that you don't want to hear.
But there's a conversation to be had around how we treat Black boys.
How we raise our sons.
Not just in the society, in the school system, how they're educated. They're educated like they're girls. The school system is the curriculum, all of that is set up. It's very female centered. It's very how can I say it? Like one-sided as far as like how people learn. For example, Black boys are quickly labeled as hypersensitive. Okay, there's a cultural dynamic involved there, right? That is not put into perspective. I'm not talking about Montessori schools. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about general education. The school system does a major disservice to Black boys. They do. I learned the other day that boys even hear different than girls.
Girls do, yes.
I learned that the other day, which then affects how they learn how to read, because in order to learn, you have to hear.
Yep.
So if you're hearing differently, that means that my approach to teaching you how to read, my approach to teaching you anything has to be different than that of a girl. But we don't put in these things into perspective.
That's why so many boys automatically want to be rappers, because their phonemic awareness is what we need to be holding on to. It's their phonemic awareness is what they're hearing.
Yeah.
Which you would also say something to a man, and you would say something, and you will completely emasculate him. I'm sorry, I dropped my cover.
Yeah.
Which is why in some cultures, they separate the genders in school. You know, and there's some wisdom to that. There's wisdom to that. So.
And what too is that we don't have a lot of males in education. They're not seeing a man at home, and they're not seeing one in school, and you then, you know, because at this point the question isn't, well, if he's a good role model, or if he's on the corner selling drugs or whatever he is they need to see what another man looks like. And then the thing is, when they come across a man, I mean, and nothing against anyone on here that wants to be transgender or whatever, when they come across a man, the man is acting like his mother. The man got a BBL and long nails and all of this kinds of stuff too.
That's another conversation.
Just know what like an old-fashioned man looks like.
Yeah.
I'm just using that loosely.
No, that's a confusion. Yeah, that's a good thing. And I know we kind of like went off a little bit, but I'm glad we brought this up, because that's something I've been observing over the last couple of days. I'm just like, you know what? This society do not like Black boys. And these Black boys become the Black men that we complain about. But we do them a disservice. In fact, a girl is more likely to survive the birthing process than a boy. This thing starts really, really early. The research is out there if we're interested in it. But most of us, when we have these conversations, okay, let's talk about the single motherhood thing, right? Why is it that women are so careless? Okay, I think Alkema touched on it a little bit, to where we have normalized it, right? Damn near glorify it a little bit. It becomes this badge of honor. Why? Because there's this strong, independent Black woman trope that's connected to being a single mother. So now it's this grand thing to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so people are thinking, I have all these, like I think Nina talked about earlier, I have all these services in place to assist me
Yeah.
as a woman.
And you saw your mama do it.
And you saw your mother do it.
And all your friends are doing it.
So you're not going to see the value of a husband. And I know, TJ, you talk a lot about this on your channel. The value of a husband, the value of a father in the home. And next week, I'm going to talk to the guys about this, because I think we really have to have a conversation around fatherhood is more than provision. It is more than provision.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what that means. But I digress. Let me move on.
I just have I want to
Mhm.
Aquarius woman made a comment about Asian boys. So I study a lot of Western cultures. I study a lot of cultures. I study everything regarding education because of the, like, you know, my parenting program.
Question.
And what I'm going to say is that you see in China and Asia and those places, every place outside of America, they have no problems with males in the homes. Not even in very Africa. They have no problems with males in the homes. Even in China, even like in China and Japan, for like about a steady 19 years.
Mhm.
If you had a daughter, you were condemned. That's how much
Mhm.
they put on, because at the end of the day, a man can make a child every day of the year. A woman can only make a child once.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they don't let go of that. So that's one of the main differences. They hold men in a very high stature in just about every other culture, just outside of here. And it's evident when they come here in those other cultures, when they immigrate to America.
So
The
I'm
women
glad,
even in the schools, the women can't make certain decisions when it comes to the children. I have to call and speak to the father, and then he decides.
that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up and you responded to it, because even though we're talking about the education system, and I kind of just I digressed a little bit, there are many factors. It's not just
Yeah.
one,
Mhm.
right? That contributes to your child having a high success rate, right? They could be good in school and they could be at the best school and still be affected by not having the both parents in the household. That can happen very easily.
Because
Okay.
it's not about the education is in the modeling as to how to get through this life.
Yeah.
It's not just about, it's about how to interact with other people. Because I mean, I have kids that have been horrible in school and still grow up to be somebody, because
Right.
they were given they were able to see some type of blueprint as to what needs to happen or where it can go.
So I have some. I'm gonna bring what the funk. I see you in the back. I'm gonna bring you up in a minute. Okay. So do you guys see our roles as mothers as a significant one that directly affects our community? If yes, in what ways? For me, I say mothers are the first teachers. I wish that we would stop talking about mothers teaching well after the child is born. I believe that teaching begins right when that child is in the womb.
Yeah.
You fussing and fighting with that child's father while they're in the womb, that child is experiencing that as well. You being stressed out, the child is experiencing that. The music that you're listening to, the stuff that you are reading, the media that you're consuming, your child is actually being affected by that as well. So I'll just drop that there, starting with conception. When the child is in the womb, that's how significant your role is, because you carry that child for the 9 months. So it's very important that you understand that as a mother, because that affects how your child comes out of the womb. Okay, I've heard stories of people who they wasn't wanted as children. It's not that it was said to them in person, is that it was felt and experienced from in the womb. And so now they grew up always having this feeling of not being wanted, even though their parents are there. And then when they sit and talk to their mother, they find out that she was considering aborting them, or she did not want them. That was experienced in the womb. The mother never said it verbally or vocally to the child, but the child experienced those feelings while they were in the womb with the in the mother's womb. And once the mom said it, they were able to process that, like, wow, I've read so many things about that. And it's a real thing. It happens, because you'll hear children say, I grew up with both parents. I just always have this feeling of you know, because there's a lot that transpires before children are born. But yes, you guys can go ahead and answer the question. The significance of our role as mothers while I bring What the Funk up. Anyone can jump in. Anyone can answer.
I feel that we are given too much responsibility.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I feel like they put everything on the mom. I don't know if and so I'm a little bit of a history buff as well.
Okay.
And I hate to sound cliche, but there were certain things, certain movements throughout history that while they were good in thought, they changed the Black mother experience. Okay. I'm not going to get into all of that stuff about them pushing the Black father out and of the home, and no, but I'm just saying that there are just certain things, certain constructs within society that exist to this day that they put too much on us. For example, I've worked my part-time job, it's very multicultural. I am literally a minority.
Okay.
And my assertiveness has transport into Nina can do it. If anybody can do it, Nina can. Like I'm walking around with an S on my chest. If there is a problem, like a disgruntled customer, and he giving them a hard time, he or she or whatever, they literally will wait for me to come back so I can handle it. Don't mind, I'm a woman too. But you see this skin here? People have already been trained to be afraid of the color. So it doesn't matter that I'm afraid. It doesn't matter that probably he might lick me or not lick me. Wait, knock me over. Is that I can handle it. So it's like me or being a Black woman and being able to handle your business and take care of your children and do whatever. Being strong is actually crippling. It is not. It's not like just that label of being a strong Black woman. No, I weak too. Yes. I am weak as well. Yes. I want to be soft and a flower as well.
Yes. Yes.
You know, that's why I feel like they just put so much on us, and then we in turn take it on and carry it and don't know how to put it down. Like some of the baggage that we carry, like we've picked it up. We don't even know when along the way we picked it up.
Yes.
And it's like we don't even know, because we didn't know we pick it up. We don't know that we're supposed to put it down.
Yes.
It's not like some things are just, honestly, as a mom, I learned like some things were really just not my fight, but I just ended up with it because it's like, well, okay, I'm a strong Black woman.
This is what we do. This is what we do.
Yeah, you know, this is
what
we know. This is not what we do.
And we're tired. And we're tired, and we got what do you call those things? Fibroids on our wombs. And all sorts of cysts in our bodies,
and the highest rate of depression is amongst us.
So
anxiety.
Yes. So and make it worse when we don't even know that that's what we're suffering from. See, we've picked up something for some reason, and we don't even know because we don't have the knowledge about the mental health issues. We don't. There's so many things we don't know that we are suffering from and that we are carrying, and all of this kinds of stuff. So we don't know to put it down. We don't know to put it down.
Yeah. I'm gonna What the Funk. Welcome. How are you,
Rashawn? I'm with you on that.
What the Funk? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good now. I'm an elder. I just turned 40, so I get to
happy
now.
Birthday.
Happy birthday! And don't be talking about elder because you know they're from my age is okay.
Okay.
What do you want to say to us, ladies? What the Funk? Because I was going through your comments. Go ahead. What do you want to contribute to the conversation, sir?
The main thing is that I think we need to kind of start looking at this whole idea of father figures. I think a lot of the poisons and the toxins that a lot of Black men get come from locker room mentality and being in sporting locker rooms. We learn about sex way too soon. We learn what we're supposed to be doing with women way too soon. We learn how we're supposed to court women way too soon in a sporting kind of environment. And also the one thing I want to also kind of recommend and have women kind of start to focus on is, you really need to take your children out of football. The crashing of the helmets on a daily practice basis is jacking up the young black men. There's many other sports you can put them into, or how about for a chance, we need to actually get ahead of the curve and start looking into putting our kids into coding. Coding is going to be the language of the world. And I think us in the black community, we are completely behind it. And there's so many black kids that I've seen that actually have the talent to really do amazing things with computer work, but they were kind of pushed into athletics for no real reason. It wasn't like they were going to be the top athlete in the college, but I think we're just programmed to do athletics no matter what, and to spend real time doing that. And that's where a lot of the poisons that come from older men, and a lot of the poisons of how we end up manifesting them as adults kind of get started. The vanity, the I want women to really notice me for the wrong things. I think in sports, we kind of turn our children into the Pookies and the Ray Rays that we say that we don't want, the men to be. Just a thought.
Okay, so Simon, so next week I'm going to have a panel of all fathers, and I would love for you to come up and have this conversation. What I would ask of you now, though, since you're up here with us ladies, because today's about Black mothers.
Wait, did you call me Simon? You did the Mo Better
Oh,
Blues.
sorry,
You called
what
me
the
Simon?
funk? I'm so sorry, because I was reading something
Wrong
Simon said.
name. I'm
I
offended.
know, what the funk. My apologies, sir. What I want to ask is, okay, from your observation, I know you're a father as well, and I think you have daughters, correct?
Yes, I have one daughter, one son, 5 and 2.
Okay, from your observation, where do you see, what areas do you see that Black mothers could tighten up in?
I think it's really important to, if the father is not in the house, if there's a breakup, then you need to come up with a plan where you have the men of that father around the children or something. Like, you need to, and it's not just having random men in the house, but men who are greatly invested in the unit of the family. So even if that means like having the uncles, now this is a problem probably because you might say, well, that the child's father's family is toxic too. You have to figure out a way to have men not just visiting, but around. And you have to figure out a way to get men to be around you without it being a sexual relationship. I remember as a child, I got tired of men coming around trying to mentor or be around me because it's like, you guys are just trying to sleep with my mom. But when I finally started to see men that were coming around because they actually just wanted to be, a part of my life, then I took them a lot more serious. But it's so important to let your child get out of your wing a bit, but at the same time, you have a real relationship with the men that are pouring into your child for the betterment of your child, not just because they want to get in your panties.
Got you. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, go ahead, Alkama.
I would like to say something. Because I find that these type of conversations like this we never get to the root of why, and I shouldn't say never, forgive me. It's not often that we get to the root of why we find ourselves in these kind of comments. And so it's like, what do we have to do in order for the children to have a healthy home and with both parents are there? And I know there's always exceptions to every rule, but how do we get back to where the vast majority of our households are being, the both parents are raising the child? It's always seems to
watch Millie Fuller hip hop cartoons and start there.
I can't hear him. He's breaking up.
Go ahead. What the funk?
Have a family time where you all sit down and watch hip hop cartoons and start with Millie Fuller. And then once you have the seeds, he is nothing but logical and he is a problem solver. And on YouTube, you can actually hear and listen to his entire book, The Code. But I would say start with hip hop cartoons because if you have young people, he has a cartoonist that uses visuals along with his message. So it's easily transferable. And then from there, use that as your church for a while. I would say do it for about a good 2 months where you're having real logical conversations about the videos that you're seeing. And if you have a channel, I say go ahead and upload those conversations and let other people see that. We need to have different types of conversations for 2022. I promise you, the white community is not having conversations about alpha men and the fresh and fit. They're not focused on this shit because they are focused on so many other things. And here we are still in 2022 focusing on the same bullshit that we've been focusing on for the last 30 years. We need to have different types of conversations, and I think that the hip hop cartoons would be a great way to start. And there's a plethora of other channels just like it where you can actually start to find real conversations and real ways to kind of find solutions.
So one of the things that I would say when we're talking about roots of the problem, I think that because a lot of when we started talking, Nina and TJ, you guys were in a lot of the topics that we touched, you guys kept saying like people just don't know, right? I think helping people understand the why they are doing what they're doing is very important, because a lot of people are just in auto drive. You know, you ever drove home and you don't know how you got there? That's the experience for a whole lot of people. They're just doing, emulating, repeating certain behavioral patterns that they've observed throughout their life. I think putting things in context is one way to kind of peel back the layer of understanding. That's just one, education. I think parenting classes need to be mandatory. I don't care what no one says. I think everybody, mommy, daddy, and I want to be very specific. I need it to be Black parenting classes for Black people, okay? Because there's a cultural dynamic involved as well as to how we do, why we do what we do, and how we parent, and so all of that. So I think parenting should be mandatory. That's just me, and that's just me, because I've taken parenting classes. I am a parenting instructor. I do know the benefit of it. I do know the importance, especially teen moms. Nina, you know this, young mothers, they need instruction. Otherwise, they're only taking what they've been given and just continue to do that. So that's two. And then I had one more. I had one more, but it's not coming to me. But Alcom, I agree with you. Like, how do we, we need to start lifting marriage up. Again, it used to be a good thing. Now you have young girls and young guys that don't even want to marry each other. They just want to sex each other. What has happened? And I hear this conversation on YouTube a lot where men talk about the woman and how women talk about they don't need men. They just, doing this. What they don't understand is that a lot of grandparents were in situations that were not the healthiest. And those are the whispers that they gave your mothers. Go get your own. Do not depend on a man. That happened because some of our grandparents were in unhealthy situations. That's just the reality. It's not showing shade at our men. That's not what's happening. That has been the reality for a lot of our grandparents. And we talk about it. Married 40, 45 years. Okay? Stop sleeping in the same room 10 years into their marriages. All right? Your mother observed that. I'm coming, TJ. Your mother observed that, right? And she was told, don't depend on a man. Go get your own stuff. Educate yourself. Why? Because her mother didn't get a chance to do that because she's from a different generation. So I would say, make marriage great again. Turn it into a hat. Like how they have the MAGA hat. Make marriage great again. I think that's a big component that's missing. The young people don't care about being married. They do not. Because we've normalized, we can do this on our own as single mothers. You know what I'm saying? We've normalized this idea of the weight, Nina, falls on mothers and fathers can just go about their merry way. We've normalized that Black men are absent and deadbeat fathers, which is not true. So a lot of women are entering into relationships, projecting that onto the Black man that they're already connecting with. So how do we change that narrative? Right? We change it by focusing on the things that we want, not the things that we don't want. If we want to see more marriages, then when we have these conversations, we have to discuss what's good about marriage, not what's bad, not just focus on the bad, not just why you don't need to be married, but what's good. How does marriage benefit the community? How does staying in how does two-parent households benefit the community? That's what we need to focus on versus Black men versus Black women, gender wars, and how do we bring us together and present that to our next generation, to our children, so that this is something that they are desiring from a young age, right? where a child is not just playing with a black dolly, a woman black dolly, and a black baby, but she's playing with the little black woman doll and the black man doll and the little baby, because that's a family dynamic. Children are only emulating what they see. We want to change the narrative. That's up to us. We have to do that. And it starts with ourselves. It starts in our own homes, and it starts in our community. I mean, TJ, I saw your hand up. If you guys want to add anything, that's fine.
Well, you said something very, very good, because I remember as a child, because
frozen. But go ahead, TJ.
Alchemar, you said that that you and your son grew up together. So basically, it's kind of the same with my mom, since she had me at 17. So, but when I lived with my grandparents for a while, I didn't understand. My grandparents didn't sleep in the same room. But as a kid, I thought that was normal, because, I slept in the room with my grandmother, and then my grandfather had his own room. So now as an adult, I understand what that means, but I didn't understand it then, because that's all I knew. So it goes directly to what you're saying, Hanifa. I don't know the dynamic between my grandparents, because all I saw them is being, loving to each other. But there may have been other things going on that obviously as a kid I wouldn't know, but maybe that was told to my mom. And then you throw in the fact that she had me and my sister, before she was 20, having to struggle. That adds on too. So, go get your education, and you have time for a husband, you have time to have kids, all those kinds of things. Because again, she didn't want us to struggle. So it definitely perpetuates itself. Yeah. It definitely does.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to say too, Alkema, I don't know if you wanted to jump in, and I see you, Simon. I'm coming to you just now. I think we need to consider rites of passage for young women and young men and young women as well. I think that's something, like, it's not enough to tell women to choose better. I think, Alkema, this speaks to your point, as far as you can't let the community off the hook. It's not enough to just say choose better. We have to take it a little further and actually provide better choices. How about that?
Right. And accept responsibility.
How about we start to provide better choices? Go ahead.
And accept the responsibility as a community to make the community better as a whole. Because when I rise, you rise. Our children. You know what I'm saying? So it's not no individual scenario. So I think Ayanna had the best catchphrase of it all when she say, "I'm here to interrupt the pattern."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what time it is. It's like
get
you
uncomfortable.
said.
Get uncomfortable.
We were autopilot with this destructive behavior. And so we gotta interrupt the pattern. That's why platforms like yours, Hanifa, is so important, because at least those who are tuned in will have an opportunity to gain a different perspective.
Yeah.
A different perspective or what they may have not recognized even within themselves. Yeah. So it's long since time for us to interrupt the pattern so we can change it, switch the game around, and let's do something, do it a different way. Because this playbook that we've been working with for it's not working. It's not working.
Simon, welcome. We don't have a lot of time left, but I'm going to be wrapping up in the next 5 to 10 minutes. What you got for us, Simon? Welcome. Can you hear me?
Hi, you're right.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
How are you? Yes, I can.
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to the whole panel.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just thought it was a really interesting subject. It's something that's close to my heart, to be honest. Because I think something that's missing is like black men understanding black women, especially when it comes to relationships. I learned so much in my marriage. The time I spent with that black woman taught me everything about what I know what black women are today. And it gave me a totally different perspective in terms of respect, understanding, poignance. and life. And I think, you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the media. It's not only young people, older people, but I think people just need to grow. And when they're around people who have positive messages and images, it helps. Especially with, you know, I'm growing my daughter. I need her to understand certain things. So I applaud this type of content, because, you know, when I have the chance to sit down with her and have a minute, this is the sort of stuff I put on. And in the future, you know, I hope there's more of this content, because 2 years ago I just wasn't in that position to do that. To see positive images of Black women who have their experiences that they can express in a professional manner, and in a non-diluted way, that makes sense, because when they go to the schools, the colleges, and they're influenced by everything around them, it's hard to sometimes draw back from that when they get into the household. You know, I've had my own experiences as a father within marriage, but also as a single father. So I just wanted to jump on and say thank you, because I might not get another opportunity, and it is really about opportunity for all of us moving forward. So
good stuff.
Thank you, Simon. And if
TJ, you know I love you, and I just met the rest of them. So good night. Over here, I'm in London.
Yeah, I know you're in London.
You take care of yourselves.
Yeah, if you can tune in next week, I'm gonna have a panel of Black fathers. So I would love to hear from you then as well, if you can.
Definitely, yeah, sure.
All right, thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, ladies, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna try to get through do you guys have a little more time? Okay, everyone is okay. Alkema, I know you're a busy woman. And I know TJ's moving as well. So and I'm sure Nina got stuff to do. So
actually, no, I cleared my schedule for tonight. Okay, I cleared my schedule because this is very important.
So let's talk about this. So now, before I move on to this, let's just talk about Alkema, you talk about getting to the root of the problem. One of the things that I found as a Black mother, and I've seen with other Black mothers, anyone that knows me, I'm very big on effectively co-parenting. I'm very big on that, right? Because I do understand that there is no such thing as forever. And let me be clear on when I say that. Things happen. Things happen. It happens. Relationships start off good and sweet, and they are in love with each other, and shit happens. And then they split. Now what? What bothers me is that you have two people that shared a life together, that loved each other. I'm not talking about the hookups that we talked about earlier. I'm talking about people who are actually in relationships, long-term relationships, and marriages. Now they split and they hate each other's guts. And the child becomes a casualty of their war. So when we're talking about getting to the root of stuff, right? I am finding that Black women struggle with accountability, especially in these dynamics. My God, I'm going to step on some Black toes right now with this, okay? Black women struggle with accountability. And when I say that, I mean, you have women around you that you know are giving the father of their children a difficult time. And you are coddling her and you are joining her in saying he ain't jacked. You know your girl is jacked up because you've been her friend for 20 years. You know she have her ways. You know she have a mouth on her. Okay? And you know she's stubborn as hell. But she's talking to you and you're not checking her. What do you guys say to, what do you guys think about us not really holding each other accountable as Black mothers in those dynamics where relationships split and it ends up being a war? What do you guys think about that before we go on to the next question?
Oh, no doubt. That's an issue. No doubt. You know, again, that's a normalized behavior. It's like, you know what I'm saying, when everybody and their mama is behaving in the same manner, and then, you know, you're looking at other people like, what? I'm supposed to, you know, can't stand him because we not together no more. I'm supposed to keep the children from him until he pay his child support bill. You know, I suppose, you know what I'm saying? All these kind of dysfunctional things, and it's selfish. It's self-centered behavior when you really peel back all the layers, because you're not taking into account what your behavior is doing to your children. You know, how is that affecting your children that they can't see the person that they love just as much as they love you? You know, and I learned this one from you, Hanifa, how you putting them in a situation where you're forcing them to choose their love between their mother and their father, because y'all two can't get along. You know what I'm
And they
saying?
will. And they will choose. They will.
And they will
Yep.
choose. No doubt they will choose.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely self-centered behavior. So yeah.
Nikki, I see your comment. I'm gonna touch on that in the middle. But TJ and Nina, what do you guys think about the accountability piece?
Well, it's hard to look at yourself. I mean, it's hard to really, you know, it's hard to see yourself.
Yeah.
It's hard to grow yourself real, especially when you can see everybody else's faults clearly. It's easier to be, woe is me, I didn't know, or, you know, he treated me wrong. And maybe some of that's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you knew it too ahead of time. I can be honest about mine, but I wasn't honest about mine from the beginning.
Right.
So, you know, it wasn't a hookup thing when I got pregnant with my daughter, but we had known each other for less than 6 months and I'm pregnant. Okay, come on now. I was irresponsible. Half-ass taking my birth control pills. Let's just keep it 1,000. So, you know, but then, and so I'm pregnant. We don't work out because that's a whole nother scandal that's on my page that my daughter, it was a scandal, I'm telling you. And but we later got back together and tried to become a family for our daughter.
Okay.
It ended up causing more damage than if we just stayed apart.
Wow.
My daughter said, again, going back to the toxicity of as a mom, my daughter, because me and my daughter, we have a podcast we do on Saturday mornings. And we talk about the stuff that she saw me do and, you know, the ebb and flow of our relationship over the years. And she talked about this one time that before we got to that point, her father and I had separated and she had to be about 6, 7. And I'm driving her to school and she knows who I'm talking to because I'm yelling. So she assumes I'm talking to her dad. And my child says, if you hate each other so much, why did you get married in the first place? A child. And she talked about how one time I was so mad. She had never seen me that angry. And I got on the phone talking to her father and I threw the phone against the door and it shattered. She did. But again, if the foundation is faulty because I ended up getting pregnant by somebody I didn't know. I didn't know. I was
big.
Yeah, I was reckless.
But here's the thing, TJ. It's big, Alkema, but these are the stories that I think a lot of us needed to be told by our parents.
And that we need to tell.
Honestly, to where, and I think a big part of it, there's a lot of missing pieces or a lot of secrets, let me put it that way, that are just not told because sometimes there's shame attached to our decisions. And even though, like Nina was talking about, we're raising children, but we're still carrying that shame. we're still carrying the shame of that, the shame of, wow, that happened expeditiously. You know what I'm saying? We were together just 2 months and boop, you know what I mean? Or I barely knew him, you know?
Or I wasn't trying to get pregnant. Lies. I wasn't trying not to either. How about that? I wasn't trying not to either.
Yeah, but I'm just saying there are parts of the stories that I think these are things that we have to share with our children so that they
Yeah.
can make better decisions. I think a part of why some generational things are not being corrected is because they are going unknown. They do.
Yeah.
Some of us, I learned this. A lot of us don't know our parents' stories. A lot of us do not know our parents' stories. When I was doing like a just like being nosy. I'm the nosy. I'm it's 5 of us, and I'm the youngest of 5. And I'm the nosy one, right? And I'm kind of like more of the more social one when it comes to like strangers and stuff. I was grilling my mother. By the time I was done, I literally wrote in my notebook, this is some Jerry Springer shit. I shouldn't have did. I wrote that. I said, what the mess? Right? But it freed me. It freed me tremendously. And it helped me in my relationship with my mom. Because I was just like, yo, she's human. She been through some stuff. I could say one thing that blew me. And I didn't know this until I was in maybe my late 20s, early 30s. My mother had all of us, 5 girls, single, by the time she was 21 years old. I had to sit with that. And I had to think about what that meant. Do you know, once I learned that, how many things made sense?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I read your lips, TJ. She was a child. Do you know how many things make sense? Once I learned that, when I was like 10 or something, my mom was just in her 30s. And I'm the last of 5. And I was 10 and she was 31. It helped me put so much into perspective. And that's just one example. But this is what's missing. We are not telling our stories because we are still holding on to the shame of those stories and the embarrassment. And we don't want our children to see us in a different light. So it's scary to have those conversations. But I'm going to go ahead and let Nina go.
For me, it was kind of a little bit of the opposite because our community is so small.
Yes.
My thing was, I remember, and I remember going out Jamban boat ride, and if I came off, and I listened to this guy talk about curse a girl out, and he was telling her, "You think I don't know you? You're just like your mother. When your mother was young, she did this, and this." And that held on to me. So at that time, I maybe was like, so I had Jamoy I was pregnant at 15, had him at 16. I maybe was like 18 at this point. And that moment is when I decided that when my son is old enough, I'm going to have regular conversations with him because I don't ever want him to be in a position where somebody has to tell him about who they think his mother was.
Right.
Like I didn't never want him to have to find out anything about me that way. So that's what happened with me. So as soon as he was old enough, like I started like talking to him about different, so much so that the day my son broke his virginity and he gonna kill me because he's in the living room. And he called me and he told me, like, I'm driving along. So our horse track has like, it's fenced. I'm literally driving past the horse track heading home. And when he called me, he was like, "Ma, I break my comb." And when it registered to me that what he was telling me, I literally swerved into the fence. So I was getting like ready to get into the turn. And that's the only reason my car didn't run into the fence. But I'm just like, I wanted him to tell me.
That's good.
But now what is my response now that he's told me? Because what happens to me, because I'm a teenage parent, because I was a teen parent, when I see other teenage mothers, my heart breaks for them, whether they're single or not, because I know what is coming with that life. how much time you question yourself, what it means. So it's never about the having the baby, but the emotional, the grow up that you have to endure, like automatically. You don't even know how to process your feelings. And now you have this baby, and there are a whole lot of other hormones and stuff that's coming for you. The minute that baby pops out. So, I just didn't want that's what happened. I just didn't want him to ever have to experience that. So and especially since he's a boy and I am his mom. Because it's one thing to be a girl and hear something about your mom. I feel like for young men to hear things about their mom or whatever it is, sexual escapades, or she was a hot girl, whatever it is, it does something different to young boys or even to men to have to hear about their mom in any other light than what they see. So I didn't want him to ever be in that situation. So me in processing the information, and because I was so young, I had like a lot of conversations with him. Like, because people like, I don't know about here, but like, home, like where we're from, people are forward, and out of place, and they make comments like, I nearly could have been your father, but they make these types of comments that are out of bounds.
People definitely don't have filters where we're from. I usually say their mouths don't have a Sunday. I usually say the mouths don't have
there's nothing teaching them how to process that.
But I want to get to go ahead. I want to get to Nikia's comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say these stories have to be told because it's funny. As a parent, it's a part of the healing process, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Because once you can get it out, and you're actually contributing to healing the next generation.
Correct. One more thing, sorry.
Correct.
Before you move on, I want to touch on what TJ said and just kind of add that we honestly don't see ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And that's why, like both of you ladies mentioned, that's why it's very important that the community be held responsible, because I am not your friend if I know that what you're doing is wrong. And you not like literally, my friend is watching this, my very good friend, like my sister, and she's gonna text me and say, am I toxic? She's watching this and she's like, does this am I toxic? So I'm about to text her back now and say, come on, pumpkin, let's go. But like she's watching and she's like, so she's watching right now and she's like processing while we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
But those are the things that need to happen.
Yes.
That's important. We're doing our friends a disservice.
Yes.
When we see them showing these types of behaviors, and if we can sit down and I can do your wig and you can do my nails, then I should be able to tell you, you need to give that guy, you need to be different with that guy. If we're I'm taking you as my plus man to get my whatever it is.
Yeah, that's important. I'm glad you brought that up because that's why we're having the conversation. Right? So that not just the people listening, but when anybody catch this on replay, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever it may be, they can have content to say, I just listened to this panel of women, Black women talking about Black motherhood. I'm glad I listened in because some of the stories that they mentioned, some of the things that they went through, I'm dealing with that because oftentimes we feel alone when we're dealing with those things. And especially, I'm sure as teen moms, I can't imagine, right? But I wanted to speak to Nikia. She said there's something missing from this conversation. There are many young Black men and women that believe in marriage and build a Black household. I don't disagree with that.
Right.
Go ahead.
As a matter of fact, my daughter and son-in-law are one. Mm-hmm. And I've talked about breaking generational curses, and again, each generation if as long as you're moving forward, it's a step forward. My mom had me as a teen mom, single mom. Okay. Well, that was her story. Well, then I had my daughter, I was a single mother, but I graduated from high school. I graduated from college. So that was something that at least I was able to get out of high school when I had my child. Well, now there's the next generation. My daughter did it differently. She went to high school, went to college, met her husband in college and got married and has a child. So each generation, the curse was broken just a little bit at a time. And that's what it goes down to. And as a matter of fact, my daughter they just launched her and her husband, my son-in-law just launched their site this week. And their goal is to talk to young people about the benefits of marriage and how it's a wonderful thing.
Beautiful.
They're 20. Okay. He's She's 27, he's 29.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they've been together for 5 years. So talk about, what a wonderful thing it is, but also letting these young women know, so you say you want to be married, but do you really?
Mm.
Yeah.
This is just not, sunshine and rainbows up in here. It's real work.
It's work. One of the things that I wanted to say, Tiffany just said, I wish I could have that experience to get those stories because I want to know. So Tiffany is my friend. She lost her mom her mom was very young when she passed, in her 30s, I think. When her mom passed in her 30s. And so that's what she's speaking to. And I forgot, but I should have started off the conversation by saying that we talk a lot about like young boys not having fathers and what that means. But a lot of what we don't, I think that's Alkema. Make sure you guys mute yourselves.
Sorry.
It's fine. One of the things that we don't talk a lot about is that there's a lot of women who don't have examples of motherhood. They weren't raised by their mothers. And if they were, because let me just be clear, an absent mother or father doesn't necessarily mean one that is out of the home. There are absent mothers and fathers living in the house with their children. That is true. This is when people talk about, even when I say two-parent households, I tell people all the time, there are female-headed two-parent households, which means that the boys are still being raised by who? Their mothers, even though the father is in the home. That is a dynamic that we don't talk enough about either. All we say is two-parent household, but what type of two-parent household? What does that look like? So there's this point where a lot of women just don't have that guidance. It could simply be that their mothers were just busy and they just want to run. It could be that their mothers were on drugs. That's a thing too. It could be that their moms were dealing with mental health stuff. That's a thing too. So we talk about it a lot with Black men and absent fathers because we have this idea of Black men just being absent. But we don't talk about it as far as Black mothers and their daughters not being able to be taught what motherhood is about because their parents are just not there for whatever reason. Okay. So I wanted to make sure I touch on that. But I'm going to start to wrap up. And I want you guys to take me on a time travel journey. I know we didn't get to all our questions. But if you could travel back to when you had your first child, what would you tell that younger version of yourself? Nina, I know we're sending you back to when you were 17, Mama, and that's okay. Alkema, same. TJ, you was what, 27, you said? What would you say to her? She's in front of you right now. What is the conversation you're having with her?
Now, am I in front of me or is my child in front of me?
You're in front of the version of yourself when you had your first child. So you're talking to you at 27 years old, a new mom. What is the conversation you having with her? Knowing what you know now. Anyone could jump in.
You're going to make mistakes. You're going to not only F up a little bit, you're going to F up a lot of bit. But each day you have a chance to make it right. So you don't mess her up completely. And be patient with yourself.
You're going to get, I like that part. You're going to get it wrong a lot. And that was one of the images of Black motherhood that we didn't mention. My thing is, we are not superheroes. We are human beings like everybody else. We're going to mess up. It's not going to be sunny every day. We're not going to always get it right. And it's okay to fail sometimes and learn from that failure. We're not superheroes. I need us to go ahead and take the cape off sometimes as Black mothers. Just take the cape off, right? Get a wrong woman who allow you to take the cape off, because that's important too, because your circle matters. If you have a circle of highty-tighty, we got it all right, we don't make any mistakes over here, listen, you about to die in that circle with stress. Get around some women who are willing to be transparent and hold you up in your weak times and come and give you a break from your child when you need it and will sit there and cry with you. Let me tell you guys, I had some crying sessions over my son struggling with potty training. I sure did. I was like, oh my God, he's going to be in a diaper till he's 5. That's how I felt. And it's his dad that helped me work through that. But we cry. We hurt over our children. We worry for them, even as adults. Even as adults. So yeah, Nina, Alkama, go ahead, and then Nina.
I would tell myself to not be afraid. Don't be afraid, and ask for help. Ask for help if you feel overwhelmed. Um, and just love the babies. Love the babies, and allow them their own personality to just be who they were created to be, and not who I would want them to be, the picture perfect individual. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Oh my gosh. You're about to make me cry. No, I mean, go ahead, Nina. Go ahead.
I echo all of those sentiments. Being patient. But I ask myself this question a lot of times, and I would say to myself, it's not your fault. It is not your fault. Yeah.
You needed to hear that, right?
It's not your fault.
Yeah.
None of this is your fault. And that's what, yeah, it's not your fault. And not just the pregnancy, because I had that, but all the other dynamics that were happening, my mom being sick, and just all the different things that were happening around me. Because what we talk about being like Black mothers, but the Black family on a whole, just speaking from like my family, no one had suffered from mental illness to that level before.
Okay.
So I had all my aunts and my uncles and my cousins, they themselves didn't even know how to handle what was going on with my mom. So they in turn didn't know how to support us as her children, even though we were cousins, and even though, yes, they love us in like a whole.
Yeah.
But what does support look like?
Yeah.
What emotional support do you guys need? Because and my mom is the baby. Okay. So this had never happened before.
Yeah.
So there was no go-to. Well, okay, well, if this happens, do this. You have everything. When your man cheats, you know how to do this. When this happens, but there's nothing for that. So for me to have, like, for all the things that were happening, like my younger self I need to tell her it's not your fault. All of the things about being patient and all those things that these ladies mentioned, but that I need to, and that needs to be said like regularly, like no matter what it is not your fault.
Yeah, I had a foster child that she got pregnant very young. She was like 15. And I could see the embarrassment and I could see the shame. But she was a really good person and she was smart. And I said to her, you are going to be a dynamic mother. At 15, I said that to her and she cried. Because
That's what you need to hear. Yep.
No one was talking to her on that level.
Yep.
Why? Because she's 15 and pregnant.
Yep.
So it's scold.
Exactly. Shame. Yep. Shame them into right.
And no one is speaking life. No one is speaking healing. The reality is this. If you see a 15-year-old, 14, and even 13, because they're getting pregnant, if they are pregnant, trust me, they are already feeling it.
Yes.
They're already feeling it.
Yep.
So when you see them, why do you have to add on? Instead of adding on, think of what can I say to uplift this person's spirit?
Yep.
Because the assumption is they're already broken within. Because they have to carry this belly at 13, 14, and 15. Yep. There's nobody around them saying, I'm proud of you.
Exactly.
Yep. No. Alkama, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, and the reality, Hanifa, is like, what are you saying that's going to uplift you, both of you, the two of you?
Yep.
Because, if they're carrying, then all that weight is going into the spirit of the baby as well. So, and that vice versa is true too. So if you're encouraging that child, then she is in turn encouraging that seed. I mean, that seed is feeling that encouragement as well.
Well, yep. Yep.
Yeah, I had to check myself on this. I'm gonna have a candid moment before you wrap up. So when I was married, right? We were married for like 8 years, right? But we were trying to have a child and it just wasn't happening. It wasn't connecting, y'all. Okay, I don't know what was going on, right? I just knew my body was my eggs were fried or something. When I got married, I got married at 27, right? And I was like, what the mess? You know what helped me with the teenage mom thing? I was married at 27. I used to see children, because here's the thing we don't talk a lot about as far as motherhood is that people, and I'm going to probably bring someone on to have this conversation. The people who are struggling to have children and what that does to their relationships, to them. I would see little girls, young girls pushing strollers and be like, judging hard.
Yes. Yes.
But I was judging because I was dealing with my own internal stuff.
Yep.
Right? It just happened that one day I saw a young, she had to be about 14 and she was pushing this little stroller. Okay? And I saw her and I don't know what it was. It could have been the spirit within me or something, just really told me to go and say an encouraging word to her in spite of what I was feeling. And ever since that day, I've never looked at a teenage mom and judged them again. Because here's what I learned working for child welfare. Some of these girls are victims of statutory rape. Some of these girls are victim of what's the word when the family when the family sleeping together?
Oh,
Incest.
Incest. I've learned that you see these young girls and you're like, oh, you think it's another 14-year-old boy. So what I've learned to do now is stop being so quick to judge and really consider all the many factors, even if it's none of them. Still consider all the factors that could have contributed to that, because that helps you to have grace. And I'm still working, because we're judgmental people by nature. It's something we got to work on within ourselves all the time. And so even when I see certain things, even around motherhood, because I don't beat my children, and we didn't get into that. But when I see Black parents and they're proud of beating their children, I want to knock their heads off. I do. Like just one lick, boop, just boop. You know what I'm saying? Just knock that, boop. That's it. But I have to understand that a lot of us inherited that. That's just what we know. That's the go-to thing. That's it. I had to educate myself and work through that. And I still have my days. Someone was talking about yelling. When you decide not to beat your child as a Black mother, you know what the last thing is to go? Yelling. Because they go hand in hand. Beating and yelling go hand in hand. So when you remove beating, that yelling, I'm still struggling with that. My 9-year-old son helps me with it all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I do report cards, and I recommend this for any young mother. Do report cards. What does that mean? Do parent report cards, because you swear you're performing well. Let your children tell it. Put things on the report card like communication, right? Quality time, attention, listening skills. Let your children grade you and see. I would say do it every 3 months. You could create your own report card. Create it based around the things that you're really curious about, what your children think. The issue with a lot of Black parents is that we don't care what our children think. We come from a generation where it's just like, you're the child, I'm the parent. Ain't nobody care what the hell you think. Shut up. I'm feeding you and sheltering you. I don't care about your thoughts. Just do what you're supposed to do. Right? But we're evolving, right? We are learning that some of those things was not the healthiest. And so you know better, you do better. So my challenge is any young parent, like, do a parent report card, please, and thank you, and see what your child thinks, because we swear we be doing the best. We be like, I'm the best mom on the planet. Okay, I just did this with my child, and your child be like, communication F. You be like, why you give me an F? And then allow them to explain it to you. Have the conversation. It's a good conversation starter. So that's just one of my little tips for parents who have children. Do a parent report card with your child and see what they think about it. I can guarantee you they're not seeing it the same way you are, and they're not experiencing it the same way you are as well. But I know I'm going to give everyone last words. And within those last words, I want you guys to, I know TJ, you're a grandma. Alkama, you're a grandma. Nina, you're not a grandma yet. Okay. But in your last words, I want you guys to also say how you have evolved as a parent. Because I know a lot of people, Alkama, you touched on it a little bit earlier, where it's like, what I know now, I didn't know then. My children are grown, but you have, like TJ said, you have another chance. You just show up in a different role. You could show up as a mentor. You could show up as a guide. You could show up as the voice of wisdom to your child, not just your grandchildren, but in assisting your child. You could give your child what you didn't get from your mother. So I just want you guys to give closing words and how you have evolved as a parent. Nina, you can start, Nina.
I was so ready to hear what all the ladies had to say.
Well, if they want to go, that's fine.
How I have evolved as a mom. I listen more. Before I used to be ready to jump in and do this, and probably you should try this and whatever. But now I sit back and see what my son's problem solving process is. Mm-hmm. That's what I sit back and do. And I'm just like, well, okay. And how are you going to fix that? And what are you going to do about it? And what are your next steps? That's my favorite question. So what are your next steps? We've already gotten through all of this. What are you going to do next now to address this? And just leaving him, I let my son fall victim to his own decisions now. That's how I've evolved. I've stopped trying to save him. Because some things you will not learn until you experience it. It doesn't matter how many times you say as a parent, well, I'm doing this so you don't have to. I did some things. You have to let them fall. You have to let them fall and hit their heads, bust it almost, and bleed.
That's so tough.
So they can learn. You see? But you just have to make sure, instead of saying, I told you so, be there to just help them put the bandages on, put on their own bandages. You know why? Because I am not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
All that's going to be left behind of me are my kind words and these hard lessons that I help them, that I help him through. So for me as evolving, that's what I've done. I've sat back. I've let him learn a lot of things. I listen and I just try to guide. And sometimes he doesn't even need my assistance. He just needs me to listen and say absolutely nothing. He just needs me to listen.
Good point.
So I those are some of the ways that I've evolved as a parent.
Yeah, that's a good point. TJ.
Well, I second what Nina said. I mean, I'm still learning. I'm still evolving because, we talk about mental health, talk about single parenthood. And when my daughter when she left and graduated high school in 2012, I had a full on major depressive episode for 2 freaking months because I'm like, what do I do with myself now? Because my world was her. So in controlling that thing, well, now I'm learning I have to evolve because not only is she grown, she's married. Mm-hmm. She's married. And what I say is secondary to what her husband says. Mm-hmm. So I have to learn to be an advisor And even though, and it's hard because I'm a take charge type of gal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about, you know, I'm military, that's, you know, but I have to learn to kind of just be quiet more, even when I want to just kind of take the reins. And even with her and Nick, my granddaughter, you know, even though I think she should do certain, I just have to be quiet. So I'm still learning because I have to respect those boundaries. But it is a wonderful feeling when your child becomes an adult and is self-sufficient and, you know, in a marriage. But it's humbling too, because you have to remind yourself they still need you, but need you differently. So I mean, I'm still evolving, you know,
Yeah.
and learning that I can't, you know, I have to call before I go to her house. You know, I just can't show up, you know. So that's, you know, I'm still learning, and this it's a process.
Little simple things like that. Call before you show up, Mama TJ. Don't just show up because you mother. Alkama, go ahead.
Yes, definitely listening more. Definitely listening more. And I actually, my children aided me in coming to that understanding, because, you know, it was at one point that I had to really take a hard swallow and sit and listen to them tell me of all the things that was toxic about their upbringing.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. They said, I never, that's why my daughter, I can still hear those words today. She said, that's why I don't tell you nothing, because you never listen to me. You never hear me. And so that listening part is huge. And I've definitely learned that throughout the course of time. And just being accepting to, you know, that they are individuals going through their own life experiences the same way I am. And then, you know, and certain things may not be as perfect as I would like them to be, but they have to have these experiences for themselves. And so just accepting the process, and being patient, you know, being patient with the process, and just knowing that having enough um assurance in myself to know that, you know, okay, I think I did a good enough job, that they will come back to the center. You know, they will come, if they get too far left field, then they'll remember all the lessons that they were taught and come back to the center. And just having the patience to see that through. Right. um, Giving them space to grow. That goes right into what I was just mentioning. Just, you know what I'm saying, not trying to do it all for them and trying to force them into the box of my own mind, you know, and just allowing them that space. And sharing my own experiences with them so they can have a greater understanding of who I am. And so they can in turn have a better understanding of who they are, you know, because I am from the loins from whence they came. And so I, in turn, in sharing my own experiences, aids them in learning more about themselves.
Yes.
And playing a happy medium is a kind of difficult for me. And I say, and what I mean by that is, my daughter has a daughter now. I'm a grandmother. She's 4, and unfortunately, they aren't connected anymore, the mom and dad. However, he is, you know, he plays a part in her life. So I play the happy medium between them. And you know, sometimes it's you know, you want to take sides, you know, and things like that. But I find that my place, you know, is I'm better served for the whole of the family if I just play the happy medium. So
That's
yeah.
yeah, that's good. That was good. I mean, first of all, I just want to tell you ladies this. Thank you for being here. I could feel the energy here. Like there's a lot of healing that's already happening right here in the space. From those of us who are on the panel, I know for myself, for the people who are listening, I could feel it, right? And that's sort of what I want my space to be about. When anyone enters, I want them to leave different from how they entered. Here's what I was going to say to summarize all you guys. Black women, Black mothers, if you want to teach your children a lesson, Share your story. Tell your story to teach the lessons that you want to teach. Pointing in their face, banging them over the head. When I was your age, I didn't do that. It's not going to do it. Why don't you tell them when you were your age what it was like with your mother? What it was like in your culture? When you had your first child, if you were a young mother, what was that like? What was that like when you were a teenager trying to do boyfriend-girlfriend relationships? Just tell the story, because the lesson that you want them to learn is already in your story. You just have to deal with your own shame that's connected to your story so that you can tell the story and your children can learn. We are doing the community a disservice by holding on to the stories, right? And I think we need more, when we talk about sister circles, we need more multi-generational sister circles. I'm sick and tired of being in sister circles with all 40-something-year-olds. Where are the 20-something-year-olds mothers? Where are the teen moms? Where are the young mothers? Where are the young ladies? These are the sister circles. When we're talking about healing, I don't want to be no healing circle with a bunch of 50, 40, 35-year-old women. The people that need these messages are the young people. We need to go and get them and stop tossing them aside because we can't understand them, because we feel behind in this society, because we can't connect with them. Bring them together. Bring them so they can be a part of these circles, a part of these conversations. If you guys know any young people, those are listening and on the panel, I am trying to have a panel with young people from the age of 18 to at least 22. Because I want to know how they see our community and what do they think the solutions are to some of the problems in our community. That generation, I want to hear from them because I think their voice is missing. We're talking around them and we're talking about them or we're talking at them, but they have a voice. We need the elders, we need us, and we need the younger generation if we're really going to do this for real. So if you guys know any young people, send them my way because I'm trying to create a panel. I only know one so far. So let me know. But I appreciate you ladies for coming on. Thank you for your transparency. I couldn't think of any other people to be on this panel. We're probably going to do a part 2 because I feel like there are some other things we still need to touch on, because I know Mama TJ was ready to go in tonight.
Yes.
And I know Alcoma can go a little deeper, but that's okay. That's my sister. You know, and Nina, your specialty, what you do in general, like that is important. We need you in these conversations. We need more of you because you guys you're seeing the children. You're on the education piece, right? You're an educator, so you're seeing it from a different perspective. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's important as well. So I just want to say thank you guys so much. You guys didn't have to be here. You guys could have been anywhere else. Thank you for your time and thank you for your energy that you brought to the conversation. I am going to go ahead and say peace to the chat and peace to you ladies. Feel free to come back at any time. Oh, and one more thing. Next week, we have the fathers. I am going to try to, moderate.
Yeah, I'll be on here.
I'll be in the chat.
As best that I could. And then the following week, ladies, because you guys, I'm so glad you guys brought up mental health. I have a sister, Black woman that I admire so much. The topic is going to be mental health. A mental health diagnosis is not a death sentence.
I need to be on that.
Oh, I want to see that. I need to be on that.
So you guys tune in for that. That is going to be, I think, on the 21st. So you guys tune in. And if you guys want to come up, please do. This is a sister that I really admire and you will never know. That she's diagnosed with anything, but she openly talks about it. And so that is a conversation that's on the 21st. And next week, we're doing Black fatherhood, kind of in the same way we've done it. So you guys make sure you guys subscribe. Tell your people to tell their people to tell their people to subscribe, like, and share the video. And until next time, peace.
Peace.
It was a
Keep up
pleasure
the
meeting you.
excellent work, Hanifa.
Yes.
Great
Yes.
job.
All right,
Good
guys.
night.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.